Welcome, everybody, to the Big Dudes in the Trenches podcast.
Hello.
I'm Bug.
I'm back.
You're Bug, and you're back.
It's been quite a long time since
Yeah,
I've
no,
been
like
gone.
3 weeks.
College basketball started. Memphis is going to the championship of the Maui Invitational, which is, if you're a college basketball fan, that's a pretty big deal. And as Doug said earlier today, he does not give a single fuck about college basketball. So I won't bore him too much with it, but I'm ready.
I know Ohio State won their first game, and then even 11 Warriors stopped posting about college basketball. So I have no idea what's going on.
Well, and the Maui Invitational is a big deal. And there's the battle for Atlantis is going on right now. College basketball, it's these early season, I shouldn't call them preseason, but these early season tournaments are really getting going. The season's really starting to get going.
Preseason.
Basically. But the biggest news of the college football season came out literally 15 minutes ago. So I don't know. You want to just hit the college football playoff rankings for a second before we dive into everything else we've got going on this week?
I mean, we can. We don't have a slide for it, so if you want to pull up a graphic somewhere, if you can find one real quick, that'd be
I got
cool.
the Twitterverse.
All right. It is a couple of very interesting things to me. First of all, just read off the actual top 10, and then it starts getting funky. Of course, we're talking about Oregon, number 1, still. Ohio State, number 2. Texas, number 3. Number 4 is still Penn State. Number 5 is Notre Dame. 6, Miami. Above, Georgia and Tennessee at 7 and 8, which, oh my gosh, Tennessee is such a big beneficiary of all the craziness in the SEC. SMU at 9. Indiana falls to 10. Boise State up to 11. And then the next playoff team would be Arizona State at number 16 right now, leaving out Clemson and Alabama 12-13, Ole Miss and South Carolina the next 2 out. There is a possibility, the biggest thing to me right now, there is a possibility with Tulane at 17, the Big 12 might get left out of the playoffs.
They could. Especially, Tulane's got to take care of business, obviously, on Thanksgiving here, and then win the conference, which I think they'll do just fine, especially if they wrap this game up against Memphis on Thursday, which I'm hoping they don't, but at the same time, I'm here for peak chaos.
I mean, there's still a scenario where West Virginia wins the Big 12. So if that happens, we're not having West Virginia in the playoff. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah, which that would be the best way to start the college football playoff. Alabama not making it and 2 group of 5 teams making it. That would be, because everybody's been so mad. This has been one of the big complaints about college football 25 is it's so unrealistic. And even I've looked at a couple, I'm like, man, this is insane. But seeing this right now, like, I don't necessarily agree with 12 through 15. And I'm a Gamecocks fan this year. Like, I'll raise my hand.
We know.
Yeah, it's not because I like saying go Cox.
You're a cock rider.
It's partially because I like saying go Cox. But at the end of the day, like, I don't think we should have a 3-loss team in the first college football playoff. That puts a horrible precedent out there. And yeah, we could end up having some craziness where, hey, maybe an unranked team is a conference champion, and now what do you do? Well, now they're not getting in, and we got 2 group of 5 teams in. I'm here for it. I'm absolutely here for it.
Yeah, one thing that also it's interesting right now. It might be true that the Textile Bowl is a play-in game where Clemson, South Carolina, even at 3 losses, maybe South Carolina sneaks in with a win over Clemson here. Yeah, Clemson could still win the ACC even with a loss to South Carolina too, which would be another layer of crazy here. SMU's clinched their spot. Miami has not. And if they lose to Syracuse, Clemson would be in against SMU. So,
and the game's in Syracuse. So
there's way too much chaos yet to know for sure what this bracket's going to look like.
And I think
speaking of that, right now, the top 4 conference champions get a bye. One of those byes would go to the Boise State Broncos.
Yes, which is another thing that we talked about. Like, we beat around the bush with it a little bit in our preseason predictions. You had Memphis winning the American, getting that bye, and I said I didn't see it happening, and Tug also didn't have it in there. But yes, realistically, they could get Boise State could end up getting a bye here. There's a lot of insanity still left to play out, and
man, the preseason,
I love college
when we all thought Florida State was going to be good,
especially Tug. And here's the other thing that I want to touch on real quick. The end of the season always has chaos, always does. There is a ginormous magnifying glass on it this year, and it's because all the chaos actually matters. In the past, there was a ton of chaos, maybe 3 of them. 3 scenarios mattered, if that, and you were lucky if 3 scenarios mattered. But realistically, you already had at least 1 spot pegged out, and I guess we have 1 spot pegged out, but that's a quarter of the field. I think the only 2 teams that are safe in all of this, that are for sure going to make it, are Oregon and unfortunately Notre Dame.
I guess that's true. It is theoretically possible that everyone up there loses the next 2 weeks then. I mean, Penn State, I feel like, is in.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that a loss to Maryland knocks them. I don't know, actually. It probably does knock them out. You're probably right.
I would say realistically, Notre Dame, you can pencil them in. Oregon, you can pencil them in. Ohio State, you can probably pencil in as well. And Texas,
I would say Texas, even with the loss of Texas A&M, they'll probably sneak in.
Yeah.
I don't think that they should in that scenario. And what happens if Texas A&M goes on to win the SEC? Are we getting? I mean, Texas A&M would be in, I'm sure.
Well, and then in that instance, then you got to start looking at where they ranked as far as conference champions, right? So things get really, really, really chocolatey, really interesting, real quick.
It is wild. Football. It is wild that the highest ranked Big 12 team is number 16. Also crazy that Tulane is 7 spots higher than Kansas State.
Yeah.
Who, I mean,
beat them.
They lost to Kansas State. And that was the best team that Tulane has played.
Yep.
Oh, man.
I have the potential for a very sad Thanksgiving, but we'll get there in a minute. We got to talk about last week, and I'm glad I'm here because I haven't gotten to explain my picks for 2 weeks now. So I can kind of backpedal and be like,
for 2 weeks.
I mean, some of them were crazy, but I don't know. This week seemed pretty good.
We'll see.
Here's the rules for anybody who hasn't been with us all season or at all recently. And
right now they are changing, and I haven't changed this slide because the playoffs are happening starting this coming Saturday, FCS round 1, which means a slight change up to the rules. I will make that more clear on this slide for the future. What we are going to do is we're going to fill out brackets ahead of the playoffs. And we're going to keep track of that bracket, kind of like a March Madness style thing, for both the FCS and FBS playoffs. That will be points for our pick'em. But we'll also pick every week. So if your bracket gets busted, you still get to pick all the games. And if your bracket is 100% correct, essentially you just doubled the entirety of that playoff bracket, which would be massive.
So this week it is a little boring unless Tug went against some of his picks, which is a strategy. Yeah, just saying. It is a strategy in the first week if you want. So
it is a strategy. I don't think anybody went against their bracket picks, which makes sense.
Yeah.
Scoop up them double points while you can.
Absolutely.
But there's some wild picks down there. Before we get there, though, of course, we're talking about last week to start off. Tug has a 2-game lead. And I say, even though you are 20 games back, 25 games back
with the playoff and bowl season coming,
you are very much in play.
If I can get in single digits between now and when bowl season kicks off, I got a shot.
if you get within 20 of when that starts, you're fine. Especially with the way we're doing the playoffs and everything.
That's
Dude.
true. That's true.
All right, so top 5 matchup starting us off here. Ohio State played one of the best games they've played in a very long time. I know the first quarter looked like Indiana would be able to hang with them, but that's the way Ohio State's been playing the entire year, is they just let teams hang around the first quarter and then put their foot down. So I don't love that personally. Ryan Day has made some comments that he doesn't like that either. We'll see what changes now that the head coach doesn't like it. But yeah, it ended up 38-15. Got a punt return touchdown for the first time in forever.
Yep.
Got a bad snap. The punter couldn't hang on to it. That ended up being an Ohio State touchdown. 14 special teams points and a great defensive performance. Ohio State wins 38-15.
Well, and I'll throw in here too, from what I saw, especially that second half, it looked like errors just Ohio State was capitalizing on those errors. And I didn't see the first half. I tuned in at the start of the second half. It was 14-7. I was like, man, this is kind of surprising. I think a lot of people were surprised by that. And the game kind of went how they expected after that. But I'm not going to go out here and throw Indiana completely under the bus. They had their worst game of the year. Unfortunately, it was against Ohio State.
Right. I mean, right. There's
there's
no other way to say that. Honestly, their offensive line, people were saying it was doing pretty well this season. We rushed 4 the entire game and had more sacks than we've ever had. So,
yeah. And then the next one, I'm the only one that went with the Gators, and honestly, it's partially because I hate Ole Miss, but also because I have said and been beating this drum all year. You can't discount Florida. They've got an incredibly tough schedule, and you said it too. You've said it too.
I agree with you, but this pick was because you hate Ole Miss. We all know.
It's like 80% because I hate Ole Miss. But Florida came out, they took care of business at home, and they're in position to go to a bowl game now.
That is not what most people expected from Florida to start the season, put it nicely. SMU took care of business at Virginia. They have clinched a spot in the ACC championship game in their first season in the ACC when they're not getting paid by the ACC. Very fun.
Memphis fans want the Tigers to take a deal like that, which, okay.
I mean, if it means ACC championships, why not? So,
I mean, maybe SMU found the cheat code.
Right. Illinois at Rutgers. Great
game.
Oh,
this fucking game. Dude, I have no idea. So for those of you that didn't watch the game, with probably 8 seconds left, Illinois lines up for a long field goal on a very windy day in Piscataway.
Yeah.
And Rutgers decided it was wise to ice the kicker. Now, I get it. That's what you do. But at the same time, like, it was a long kick. The wind, they called it a swirling wind, and I didn't get to see the flags before the kick. The announcer said it looked like it had the leg, but it went wide or whatever. From what I saw, I don't think it made it. That's besides the point.
I couldn't tell.
Yeah. Illinois decided to reverse course and say, fuck it, we ball. And they went for it and scored a touchdown to take the lead.
An unreal touchdown. That was nuts.
That was insane. Absolutely love it.
Yeah, to take the lead with 4 seconds left.
Yeah. And then Rutgers on the return threw the ball forward about 4 different times. I was like, just go down. Like, it's over.
Yeah. UConn at Syracuse. UConn is bowl eligible, which, impressive for UConn. They're playing at the Carrier Dome. We all picked Syracuse, though, and they did win. Touchdown game. Good effort.
Good on you, UConn.
Not good effort for North Carolina. Mac Brown got fired. Fair enough.
But he will coach this week.
Lost at Boston College 41-21. Nice. As in not nice for North Carolina.
Yeah, this team's been a question mark all year. Should have been much better than they were, and this is where they're at.
Jacksonville State pulls off a big one against Sam Houston. Very important for Conference USA standings. Jackson Jacksonville State. So they're like Jax State, which is kind of hard to say, but easier to type. And then Jacksonville State is annoying to say.
Go Cox also works.
Go Cox does work. That is fair. I don't remember. Did Jacksonville State actually clinch a spot in the title game with this win? Yes, they did. So massive result for them.
If you don't remember, we'll talk about it later.
Right. Richmond beat William & Mary 27-0, clinching the Coastal Athletic Association. I almost called them their old name, which they think is racist now for some reason or whatever. I don't think it's that, actually. I think it's just they're too big to be contained to colonial America now. So Coastal Athletic Association, they went a perfect 8-0 in conference and then got their undisputed, untied title taken away from them the last possible second, like today. So we'll talk about that as well at some point. Yale at Harvard did not go the way we expected, though. The Bulldogs pulled it out.
We got Handsome Dan. Beautiful. But he is a very handsome guy.
He is such a dapper fella.
He's a good boy. I mean, in fairness, everybody going Harvard, I think we just kind of forgot how bad Harvard's been this year. We're just like, oh, Harvard's been pretty good over the past however many years.
Yeah, you talk like they've been ass. This is their second loss of the season.
They've not looked good all year.
I know it's been harder for them than it
and they don't go to the playoffs as of this year. They're still not going to the playoffs. So fuck the Ivy League.
Well, we're staying with the Ivy League because Columbia won themselves a share of the Ivy League title when they beat Cornell 17-9. I, going into the show last week, started us off by taking Cornell, and then you guys filled in the slides, and you also took Cornell. I'm like, what the fuck are y'all doing? I was picking it as a meme, and y'all picked Cornell actually. Like, I switched it to Columbia for the show because Columbia should have won this game. It was very obvious from the outset to me, and they did win this game, so I'm very happy with that.
Cornell's had a weird season too, though.
I mean, fair.
The Ivy League's been weird.
Not weird enough. I also thought the same thing, though, about Duquesne at Central Connecticut. I thought you guys were nuts. And then Central Connecticut actually did win. And got their first ever FCS playoff berth.
Exactly. And they've been a team that has had wins where you're thinking maybe they shouldn't. And they have been a team that has stuck around way too long to not. This isn't that surprising that they won. And certainly they're deserving of this playoff spot.
I mean, this
very
was
impressive
a de facto NEC championship game. So they had to get here somehow, had to earn their way into this. It's fair enough. Lafayette at Lehigh, the oldest continuous rivalry in the history of college football. Lehigh got back to their winning ways. This rivalry is very streaky. Lafayette had it for a little while. It looks like it's going to be Lehigh's for the next few years, especially with this result. Lehigh kind of stamped that they are the team to beat in the Patriot right now, which is a far cry from where they were the past couple of seasons. Nice turnaround for Lehigh. But right up there with them, Holy Cross shut out Georgetown to claim a share of that Patriot League title.
Which we all kind of saw coming. Holy Cross, they've had their ups and downs this year too, though. But from the beginning, we thought they would be the best team in the conference by a country mile. Maybe not a country mile, but I still think they're a better team than Lehigh.
And then we all tried to go with the Toppers against the Liberty Flames.
And we got flamed for it.
Who I fell into a burning ring of fire. I also picked Maine against New Hampshire.
I don't know what you were thinking there.
That one really
either. Confused me.
I really don't know either. I just thought it'd be fun. And then New Hampshire's in the playoff now, so.
Yeah, and I remember looking at that, and I was like, he does realize New Hampshire's got a chance at the playoff, right?
I did know that, and I was like, it'd be really funny if Maine knocked him out.
Remember when you were doing this line of thinking at the beginning of the year and getting your ass kicked?
Yeah. Is you saying it doesn't work for me? Ever? Yeah. Delaware lost to Villanova. I didn't expect that at all.
Yeah, but what's more important is that I got skunked on this page. I was
It is
doing
much
so
more
good
important.
too. We got Wildcat, we got the scratch there, and
Nice.
yeah.
And Stony Brook did lose this game to Monmouth, 55-47.
Also
Rough
insane.
one. I would say this knocked them out of the playoff. This loss right here.
Probably.
At the same time, it is still an insane turnaround for Stony Brook. And this season should not be taken for granted. They were 0-10 last year, and their
On the
head
verge of the
coach
playoffs.
just won Coach of the Year for the CAA and should probably win it for all of the FCS. This was an insane season for Stony Brook.
Mm-hmm.
Just couldn't get it done and get a playoff berth. But Illinois State got themselves into the playoffs. You've been hating all year.
I have been hating Illinois State all year. Hand up. I've been a hater.
Yep.
And I still hate them because why, who at the IHSA did their dean blow to get the IHSA state championship in Bloomington Normal? And I'm not saying there's a lot to do in Champaign-Urbana. There's not. I've been there. But the stadium, like Memorial Stadium at U of I, is so much nicer. So
Yep.
Illinois State's not going to host their playoff game despite being the seeded team. They're going to have to travel to Cape Girardeau to take on SEMO. I know we're getting ahead of ourselves here talking about the FCS playoffs, but they're going to have to travel even though they're the seeded team, not because they don't have the availability or Cape Girardeau is that much better than Bloomington Normal. No, it's because they decided that hosting the IHSA state championship was more important than their own program, which, in fairness, I don't think anybody saw this season coming from the Redbirds here.
Yeah, in fairness, sure. At the same time, Illinois is not playing a home game this week. You could have definitely had it at Champaign-Urbana.
The whole time I was in high school, it was in Champaign. So I have no idea when this changed, but it is a damn shame because I can guarantee you that stadium is not anywhere near as nice as Memorial Stadium. And for the record, I have no fucking clue why they don't just play in Chicago at Soldier Field. That's a whole different discussion now anyway, but I hate the Bears, so we're not going to talk about that.
But you got skunked here. Very fun for me.
Yep, and that's not the last time I see him, unfortunately.
The very next slide, actually.
Yep, there he is. He didn't go far.
I called San Diego over Morehead State. I didn't really call anything. I just took a gamble, and it paid off for the first time in a long time. Mercyhurst beat St. Francis 21-20.
And we got thrown into the bottom of Lake Erie for this by the Lakers.
We got
just what the hell, St. Francis?
Yeah.
I think every time I pick St. Francis, they've fucked me up. I should have known to not take them.
Yeah. What's like the big wreck that was in Lake Erie?
Oh, God. Well, you're looking that up. Chattanooga took down Austin Peay 24-17. I can only pee so much. So I get it. And I came around to Chattanooga. I said, you know what? I'm going to accept Chattanooga. I'm going to jump on the Chattanooga choo-choo. And I forgot because I got distracted because I had to go pee. And the Governors let me down. So that's unfortunate. But unfortunately, that's also where we find ourselves now with me getting skunked here. Congrats to you and Tug for taking them because Tug almost got skunked on this slide as well.
Yes.
And would you believe it? This is the last time we're going to see the skunk this episode.
I think I'm thinking of the prison ship that went down off of Port Clinton. Which that's what we did when we took St. Francis. We sunk in the Lake Erie. But also Lake Erie is very shallow, so it's sunk, but like 8 feet into the water.
Can't even think.
Everybody got off just fine.
Just kind of bob and weave their way back over.
Right. Not a Lake Superior situation or anything. Just
it was a moderate inconvenience.
Yeah. Montana State hosted Montana, beat Montana, undefeated on the regular season, including an FBS win, clinched themselves the number 1 overall seed in the FCS playoffs. The Bobcats looking mighty scary.
It is wild how these two teams have flipped. And now Montana has had a worse season than Montana State had last year. But going into this game last year, there was little doubt in my mind that Montana would take care of business. Very similar this year. I knew Montana State was winning this one before it started.
And South Dakota, the Coyotes knock off North Dakota State for the first time in forever. I don't know that it's ever happened before. Like, I'm not even kidding.
It's insane.
South Dakota gets a share of the Missouri Valley Conference title with this win, which is the first time that's ever happened.
North Dakota State looked unbeatable at times this year, and they go and do stuff like this. And South Dakota has looked unbeatable at times, and they've lost some games. And South Dakota State's looked unbeatable at times. They lost to North Dakota State, the Dakota marker. I mean, these teams up in Dakota and Missouri Valley are just running wreck over the conference and over at the FCS right now.
The only team that's been constantly winning is Montana State, which is a good sign for the Bobcats. St. Thomas did beat Dayton at home. This was kind of one of those pioneer games under the radar, picking it for fun at this point. St. Thomas has been a nice story the past few years. Nice to see them get back in the win column.
Were they eligible for the playoffs this year?
I think this was the first year they were eligible.
It's unfortunate.
Yes.
Very unfortunate.
Also unfortunate, we all picked JMU and we all picked Louisiana Monroe.
And we got old school mountaineered with the corncob pipe, and we lost the game of life because the champions of life took care of business at home against Louisiana Monroe.
But we also all took Charlotte over Florida Atlantic.
Because Florida Atlantic fucking sucks.
The battle of the dumpster fires in the American Athletic Conference, which is crazy to say because Temple still exists. So,
but you know what they say? The strongest steel is forged in the fire of the dumpster. And for all we know, Biff Poggi was still like right behind the sideline calling plays. The man showed up at practice the day after he was fired, and the team rallied around him. I mean, they love that dude. He's a football guy. How are you firing a guy like that? Charlotte. Here's the thing with Charlotte too: is they should have beaten Memphis. Their problem was that they start too damn slow, and Memphis is good enough that they're able to hold them off when they tried to make their comeback. But that's how they'd played all year. They'd had some upset wins by doing exactly that. I think if they stuck it out with Biff Poggi, maybe in a year or two, Charlotte would be a good team. I have no idea what's in store for them down the line now, but man, that was not a firing I saw happening this year.
Well, there is a coach who technically still has 3 years left on his contract in the University of North Carolina system. Just got let go. Legendary national championship winning head coach.
Be wild.
If Mac Brown gets reassigned to Charlotte,
that would be insane. Absolutely insane. If Mac Brown ends up coaching at Charlotte, you heard it here first. On Big Dudes in the Trenches.
Tarleton State took care of business against Central Arkansas, got themselves a seed in the playoffs. Good job to the Texans. Hell of a season for them.
Yeah, and Central Arkansas just kind of let me down all year. So I don't know why I kept going with them, but here we are.
And UT Martin also took care of business, took overtime to do it. Lindenwood's been one of those teams, been a thorn in the side of the Big South OVC all season. But Tennessee Martin took care of business in overtime, 33-26, and got themselves a seed in the playoffs. Or no, are they a seed? Or are they just at large? Either way, they're in the playoffs. I know that.
We'll see it later.
And then Northern Arizona also got themselves into the playoffs with a win against Eastern Washington. NAU is, I'm surprised they made it, but they did. So congrats.
Here we are.
South Dakota State got themselves the automatic bid from the Missouri Valley somehow.
Beautiful.
With a 45-9 win over Missouri State.
Get fucked on your way to Conference USA, Missouri State. That's what they said.
And we also got all of these games correct, all three of us. Perfect, immaculate grid here.
I got to think of something to put on these when we're just completely perfect. Maybe just like a gold border around it that pops up. So some angelic music, like we know what we're talking about sometimes.
Alabama State won 9-6. If you read it top to bottom, that's 6-9, as in a very nice game.
Nice.
And then Jackson State took care of business at Alcorn, 48-10.
Which I don't
think looked nigh unbeatable.
Right, but I don't think that Alcorn State was really ready for this game either. This is not how they've played all season. It's really a sad representation of what they've done throughout the year, because they were very impressive earlier on, and I thought maybe this game would have been more interesting. I kind of went with Jackson State because of the history. But yeah, I mean, sad ending to the season for Alcorn State.
Western Carolina took care of Samford on the road, 47-42, to wrap up their season. Tough break for the Catamounts, missing the playoffs. Felt like a playoff team down the stretch at times. Didn't start off the season that way, though, and that probably what kept them out.
And hats off to them for rallying, too, with all the stuff they've had to deal with the hurricane this year. Put in a great season, and for my money, they should have been in over NAU.
Abilene Christian did not take care of business against Stephen F. Austin. Didn't end up costing them anything. They still won.
Bless you.
Thank you. Still won the UAC, and they still got a seed in the playoffs. They're still hosting a playoff game. Nothing really changed for them.
Just got chopped down to size a little bit. It's okay, though.
Yeah. Honestly, heading into the first round of the playoffs, not the worst thing to give your players a little extra motivation.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, preferably you'd be undefeated and win every game all the time. But second best thing is to lose at the right time. And
here's the real interesting one. Like we talked about, Penn State's the number 4 team in the country per the college football playoff poll that just came out right before the show. They had a 1-point victory over Minnesota.
Mm-hmm.
They, of course, lost to Ohio State. They beat Illinois. It ended up being by 14 because of a pick 6 at the end, right? And Illinois was in that game the whole way.
Mm-hmm.
This is a very beatable Penn State, and we talk about it a lot, that there is a tier break when we look at, just how college football is lined up. I think Penn State is solidly in that second tier, and man, things are going to get really interesting in the playoff this year.
It's also a 1-score game against Bowling Green and a 3-point game against USC. Like, I know they played Ohio State pretty well, but it was the same exact script that we've seen Ohio State, Penn State for the past 7-8 years. So, yeah, I'm not too scared of Penn State at this point. They find ways to beat barely bowl-eligible teams by 1 score, and they love doing that. That's the thing that they're best at. Congrats to them for being good at that thing. It makes them eligible for a 12-team playoff. It also means they will not be competing for a Big Ten championship anytime soon.
which might be a good thing for him. Who knows?
Right. Oh, man. The Big 12 did some things this weekend.
What a fucking dumpster fire.
BYU went out to Arizona State, and it looked like they lost, and then the refs put another second on the clock, and then they did lose officially. So
the fans rushed the field. They had to clear them off the field. I saw a video today. A kid just went and hung out in the BYU medical tent. He's like, they have no idea I'm in here. And he watched.
They didn't even clear everybody fully off the field. They just got them off of the side of the field that everybody was going towards.
And it took so long. They're doing all this, and Retzlaff had time to just practice Hail Marys. I don't know if he wore himself out or what, but he threw the ball 5 yards short.
And they caught it, but then he couldn't get in the end zone off of that.
Yeah.
And Arizona State does pull off the win, which creates a whole bunch of weird scenarios in the Big 12, which we'll get to here in a bit. Colorado also losing at Kansas.
We got Rock Chalk Jayhawk. That game was actually in Missouri, in Kansas City at Chiefs Stadium. I almost went to this game, but the tickets were not a bad price, and through VetTix I could have gotten them for like $20. But it was still parking prices for Chiefs games, which is ridiculous, and I refuse to pay that, so I didn't go. However, I want to
a good $45 for
like
lot
60
parking or something.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It's insane. Anyway, so I said in Discord, which if you're not there, you should be. We talk football all the time. And other random stuff like college basketball. Anyway, I said I regret not taking Kansas. Not because I thought beforehand they would win, but because they have been on this incredible run. They're a game away from being bowl eligible. And looking at how they played against BYU last week, this was 2 losses in a row for BYU, by the way, after being undefeated going into that Kansas game. After looking at how they played against BYU, I had a feeling things have kind of turned, things have changed. And the post-game interviews from that BYU game, the play, like Jaden Daniels was, he was saying, yeah, we haven't been as good as we should have been. But we're all still here. We still got a chance to do something special this year. I've never been a fan of Kansas. I will never be a fan of Kansas. But if I was a kid looking to go play college football, I'm now interested in Kansas because that's a coach that these guys love playing for.
2 things. Number one, I love that we're a college football show, and the realm of random things that we talk about in the Discord includes college basketball, like the most adjacent thing possible. Second of all, Kansas is now the first team in college football history to knock off AP top 25 teams 3 straight weeks while being under 500 for all 3 games, which is not a record that teams would like to have, right? That means you're at least 3 games below 500 to start that run, but you're also good enough to beat top 25 teams.
And one of them was on the road.
Yeah, that's exactly where Kansas is at as a team right now. Look, everybody's forgotten at this point how incredible of a turnaround Kansas has had just the past couple of seasons, from being completely irrelevant to now. There was conversation of them potentially being a Big 12 title contender at the beginning of the season. Hasn't happened for them, but I don't think they're going away either. This is a legitimately good team now, like in the mix every year.
And correct myself real quick here. I said Jalen Daniels, because why would anybody get that confused ever? By the way, he's still a junior. I don't think he can go to the NFL draft after this season. Now, he's shown a lot, and he's certainly shown some leadership and some skills that would be very valuable to a team looking for a quarterback. But he might come back, man. I mean,
his injury history too. I don't think he'd get drafted.
Yeah, I think he's got to have a full season and got to have a better season, start to finish. So this Kansas team, man, If they finish strong, look out for them next year, which I feel like we said last year and the year before, but I digress. Amazing run by the Jayhawks here.
And we got Nebraska.
Going bowling for the first time since what, 03?
Something stupid like that. It's crazy. Also, Wisconsin now needs to win Paul Bunyan's Axe to get to a bowl game. Would be the first time they've missed a bowl game in about as long as Nebraska hasn't made one. I think like 2001 is the last time Wisconsin did not make a bowl game. So that'll be a big rivalry that we'll be picking here in a little while. But Nebraska did get the win.
It says 2016, which feels way too soon. Feels way too soon. They lost to Tennessee in the Music City Bowl, so a home game for Tennessee, which isn't really fair. But them's the breaks.
Why do I remember that game?
I don't know. You want to guess the score?
No, I don't. But like I remember that matchup. I guess I remember. Why? Anyway, okay. The big game, Cal, Stanford, ACC battle of the ages.
Classic ACC rivalry here.
Cal pulls this one out 24-21. Of course, it was close because it's the big game. If you saw the post-game interview, Cal's quarterback's literally bawling, talking about how much he loves his guys. Very soy boy energy. Such a great Cal quarterback.
He's going to go on an ayahuasca adventure with Aaron Rodgers this offseason, I have a feeling.
Can't wait for that podcast. All right. Louisville hosted Pitt, blew the shit out of them. 37-9.
Pause. What did they do?
You heard me. And then Tennessee State beat SEMO, got themselves into the playoffs for the first time since, 2001. I believe that's right. No, 90. It was like 99, 98, 2000, 2001. That time period, Tennessee State was decent. And then Eddie George just got himself Big South OVC Coach of the Year for his performance here. And
SEMO still got in too, so everybody wins.
Yeah. Big win for Tennessee State, though.
Massive.
Unfortunately, that means they have to go play at Montana. But
that sucks.
Them's the breaks. Idaho knocks off in-state rival Idaho State at the Kibby Dome. Idaho gets themselves into the playoffs very seamlessly.
I am willing to say now that Idaho hanging around and almost upsetting Oregon to start the year, and Oregon fans trying to, rationalize it. I'm willing to say that's not a huge amount of copium. I am not willing to say that this is a team that realistically is going to compete for the national championship.
Right.
And I say that because they got the 8 seed, which means if they win one game, they're likely taking on Montana State. And we know they're probably not winning that one.
Well, they have played once already this year, Idaho and Montana State. Montana State won 38-7, which is a lot more than Oregon beat them. So
what you're saying is Montana State could beat Oregon.
Montana State, the true Division I national champions. Yes.
I like it. Might be true.
Notre Dame knocked out Army in a big way. Did not expect it to be as bad of a shellacking as it was, honestly.
I thought Notre Dame realistically would win this game. And I didn't take this to make ourselves meme proof of picking Notre Dame. I thought Army had a chance, had a path. They didn't make the mistakes that Navy made. They didn't have ball security issues. They had ball movement issues. They could not get a fucking thing going, and Notre Dame beat the shit out of them.
like you said, for Indiana, the worst game that Army played all season, and it happened to be against their toughest opponent.
Yeah.
Bad combination. Boise State at Wyoming. Of course, I had to make us pick this one in Laramie. It ended up delivering. It was a close one. Genty, though, ran for 169 yards. Nice. And 1 touchdown. Got Boise State over the hump.
And people are still saying it's Travis Hunter clearing away as the Heisman favorite.
Of course they are. Because they are not ball knowers like we are.
I just I don't know what's going on. I don't know. JT has the
Just
numbers.
to finish that quote there, I don't know what's going on.
I don't know what's going on. JT has the numbers, but we're really going to be like, oh no, snap count is the most important thing in college football. That's not to take away anything from what Travis Hunter's doing. He's having a fantastic season, but honestly, completely honest, as long as a quarterback doesn't end up winning.
Yeah. I don't know who I would vote for right now. Heisman, honestly. You got a BRB? All right. Let me think about this live then. Oh, man. So GT's having one of the greatest seasons at running back we've seen in our lifetimes. Like, definitively the best in our lifetime, actually. Here's my issue with Travis Hunter. Like, he's a really good receiver. He is the engine of the Colorado offense. And I would not personally consider him a top 5 receiver in college football.
No, he's not. His skill is mostly at corner. Like when he goes to the NFL, he will be primarily a cornerback. And I think everybody's
makes it even worse to me then that we kind of all agree on this, and yet he is up for the Blitnikoff and not the Thorpe. Like, come on.
Yeah.
Well, if we're going to be honest about his abilities, if we're going to be honest about everybody, Jeremiah Smith and Ryan Williams ought to be in the Blitnikoff conversation over Hunter. And I haven't looked at the Thorpe finalists. I know Caleb Downs is in there, which makes a lot of sense to me. Other than that, I don't know who is. I put Travis Hunter in that. Whatever. I wouldn't be surprised if Hunter wins the Maxwell. I feel like that's a player designed to win the Maxwell. I 100%. Don't think he's a Heisman winner. And I know they're like definitionally the same award, but they're not treated like that. So
yeah, it's going to be an interesting weekend in New York. Let's just leave it at that. Both these guys are going to be there. Who's more deserving really depends at what lens you're looking at college football through, I think.
Who's more deserving? Will Howard. Well, nobody's ready for that conversation. All right. Oregon State knocks off Washington State.
Pac-12 champions, Oregon State.
It's Tupac, baby.
Hang the banner.
Baylor over Houston. Get themselves another Big 12 win on a season that everybody basically given up on Baylor. Going into the season, Dave Aranda got himself another season for sure, at least out of this. And Baylor is technically still alive in the Big 12 title race. No, who's not alive?
Big 12.
Who's not alive in their conference title race is Alabama.
Or Oklahoma, for that matter.
Or Oklahoma.
You want to go first?
24-3 is that's just really bad. That's a really bad look. Honestly, you know what this reminds me of? This is a game, obviously, Alabama showed up not expecting to have to try. Right? That's that kind of a game. They sleptwalked their way into it. already thinking about, hey, we got the Iron Bowl next week, going to be real big. We're kind of in that playoff conversation. Yeah, we need to take care of business, but now we don't really have to worry about the SEC championship that much. We're just kind of worrying about what seed we're going to be. We're thinking about hosting a playoff game, getting really excited for that. You're looking ahead is the point of that spiel. Okay, this reminds me of the 2017 and 2018 instances of Ohio State going on the road to an unranked opponent, getting the doors blown off of them because they're already thinking about the future. This is exactly the kind of thing that knocked Ohio State out of the conversation for the playoff in those seasons, even though they were clearly one of the best teams in the country. There was no shot anybody was going to let them in the playoff because they sleptwalked for Iowa. They sleptwalked for Purdue. Alabama should not be a playoff team. They sleptwalked this game at Oklahoma. Oklahoma's not good.
No. And I will raise this too. Now I can't say I've kept up as much with Ole Miss and their losses here. But if you're looking at a 3-loss team, there's two things I want to touch on here. One, unless we absolutely have to, and we don't. There are plenty of teams with 2 losses, and there will be plenty of teams after this week and after the conference championships with 2 losses that are deserving of a spot in the college football playoff. I think it is a horrible precedent to put a 3-loss team into this first 12-team college football playoff if we don't have to. If we do have to, say the 3-loss teams, Alabama, Ole Miss, and South Carolina went out. The one that you probably end up putting in based on how they've lost and who they've lost to, I think it ends up being Ole Miss. But
No.
South Carolina's right in that conversation too. The only problem is they got their doors blown off by Ole Miss.
Alabama Ole Miss is they lost to Kentucky and they lost to Florida.
Yeah.
You can't do that. You can't lose to Kentucky and be in the playoff right now.
Alabama
I would put
lost.
South Carolina in over Ole Miss, and I would
too.
put South Carolina in over Alabama, which a lot of people won't like.
But
especially if South Carolina beats Clemson this week,
mm-hmm.
they should be ahead of the Crimson Tide for me.
But that's the problem. Clemson has lost to both those teams and LSU. Now, granted, only one of those teams really beat them. Now, of course, they lost all 3 games. Alabama, they should have won. They had a touchdown taken away. LSU, they had a touchdown taken away. They have a freshman quarterback. Alabama is getting too much love. And the other thing that I want to point out specifically about this game, and Vanderbilt for that matter, this is coming off the tail of a player being released and off the team. He's entering the transfer portal because he decided to hit on Kalen DeBoer's daughter. Talk about a culture shift. There's no way a single one of those dudes would have thought of doing anything like that with Nick Saban there. You know, the other thing they wouldn't do this, hey, let's all run down to the other end zone after an interception and celebrate in the end zone and waste 15 minutes. No, they got down to business. They went out and played football. They went out to beat the other team. We're seeing a culture shift in Alabama, and things are kind of coming off the rails. I was thinking about this. I don't know another sport that the head coach is more important than in college football. And Alabama this season is prime example A.
It's funny you use the word prime. Talking about head coaches in college football. Anyway, no, what I'm thinking of here is kind of going along with what you're saying. There is a style of coaching that works very well for 3-star players that does not work for 5-star players.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you go from, I need you to be loose, I need you to be, I kind of need the help of playing with some emotion because we're not going to win on talent alone, to now you have all of the blue chips, literally all of the blue chip prospects in the country want to play for you. That is such a different dynamic that I'm not sure Kalen DeBoer was ready for. I don't know that anyone can be ready for. That is such a massive change. So when you encourage players to have a personality, it kind of doesn't, it stops working at a certain level of talent, unfortunately, which is what we've seen in the NFL too. When players get a little bit nuts, they lose it immediately.
Mm-hmm.
When players go about their business day in, day out, and we don't hear about them, well, it turns out they were a 6-time Pro Bowler and we forgot they existed at the same time. Like, it's very effective.
Yeah. I think Alabama's an incredible case study for this right now. Yeah, we're watching it happen in real time.
And they're probably going to be a playoff team anyway, because fuck us.
But we got Sooner schoonered.
Which is hilarious because Oklahoma did storm the field before time expired.
There's a lot of that. That's the third time this has happened in college football this year. Just fantastic.
They literally Soonered it. Oh, man. Auburn beat Texas A&M in 4 overtimes.
Fantastic game.
Believe it or not, the biggest cheer of the day was when they showed the Alabama score and not when they had actually won their own game.
War Eagle, baby.
Yeah, this game was very fun. I can't believe it went to 4 overtimes.
And then to end because Texas A&M can't catch a pass. I mean, worst place to hit a receiver, right in the hands. Oh, man, brutal. Well, I mean, announcer said it. You hate to see a game that good end like that, but man, he was wide open, falling towards the ball, and that is college football.
You know what else is college football right now? Old Dominion losing 1-score games. They love it so much. Just like we talked about Penn State, the best thing that they do is figure out a way to win 1-score games against barely bowl-eligible teams. Old Dominion does the exact opposite of that. They lose 1-possession games against barely bowl-eligible teams all the time.
Yes.
That's basically every week of Old Dominion's season so far. I hate it so much. I want them to be good. I watch this team. I'm like, this is a fun team. They have some great pieces. And I love the head coach. They are so close to being good. And they refuse to be. It hurts. Oh, man. And then LSU won by a touchdown against Vanderbilt. I wonder if Vanderbilt was looking ahead a little bit as well. They're not playing for a title or anything. They're already bowl eligible. Tennessee's next week.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the Diego Pavia effect, right? This team should not be this good. They shouldn't have beaten Alabama. I want to ride with my boy all year, but man, this is a rough one. Rough one for them to drop here.
It is in Death Valley in a 7-point game. Like, we have to give a little respect here.
Vanderbilt. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
This is way better than historic Vanderbilt teams would have done. You know, last year would have been 52-3.
Yeah.
So Kansas State took care of business at home against Cincinnati. Kept Kansas State alive in the Big 12 race. You'll notice I've said that about a lot of Big 12 teams.
We're getting there. Don't worry.
And then Duke beat Virginia Tech by a field goal. I am still in denial about the season that Duke is having. Why are they winning so many games?
I don't know.
Why?
They don't know either. They're just here for the ride, man.
And then Lamar knocked off McNeese. We had all picked the Cowboys. Hate to see it.
Yep. And,
unless you're a Lamar fan. I guess.
We got cardinaled.
Yeah.
We got cardinaled. That's
a beautiful picture of a cardinal.
It is. It's a mirror image too. I had to flip it so it looked like it wasn't flying backwards because it's not a hummingbird. It can't fly backwards.
Right.
But, Yep. 2-point victory. Unreal.
USC took care of UCLA and
classic Big Ten rivalry.
All you haters saying USC could not win a Big Ten road game in November. Well, they finally did it and claimed the victory bell, 19-13. Honestly, more impressed with the turnaround UCLA has had from where they started this season to being competitive at the end and actually winning some conference games at the end. Great coaching job there. Down in the Mountain West, Colorado State did drop another game. Fresno State at home handled their business. I don't like the way Colorado State does this to me all the time. They're technically still alive in the Mountain West title race. Like, this is not a terrible Rams team as much as Bug tries to claim that it is all the time. But they lose whenever I pick them. So that's where we're at with Colorado State. And then Air Force won 22-19 at Nevada. First victory by any team in this entire season where they didn't pass for a single yard. 0 passing yards on the game. That is our nation's Air Force. 0 yards through the air.
Yeah, always on the ground. That's how we do things in the Air Force. Just ask me.
All right, fair enough. That brings us to our podium for the week, where I'm in last. And I was, oh gosh, I wanted to keep narrowing that gap to Tug. And I picked Maine. That was the biggest problem here. Tug,
otherwise, you'd have tied.
Tug's just chilling. A real chill guy up there in second. And then Bug is staying alive, baby.
You know, I had several perfect slides, but also I'm the only one that got skunked. I got skunked twice this week, and I still end up in first place. What are y'all doing?
Yep. Losing.
I don't know. Gaining 2 spots feels great, too. Although it doesn't look like this slide was updated. Whoops.
Nice.
It's all right, though.
Yeah, that's exactly the same numbers as what it had up top. Actually, even no. Yeah, this was just straight up not updated at all. All right.
We'll figure it out later. We got way more important things to talk about because I want y'all to understand. Okay. Doug goes through iterations of how he puts some things together. And when he first put this slide together, the Big 12 would have really caught your attention because it was just a paragraph. It's really simple. If Arizona State and Iowa State win, they're in.
Mm-hmm.
But according to the Big 12 themselves, there are 250 permutations of how teams can get in to the championship game here.
Over 250.
Over 250. And frankly, I thought that was hilarious, which he took to mean, fuck, I have to change it. It doesn't look good. No. It was perfect. But this is almost more comical, too.
Let's go through this in order. We'll start with the Power 4, and we'll hit the Big 12 last real quick because this is it most logical way to do this. So the ACC, we already have SMU clinch a spot. Miami, if they beat Syracuse this week, they are in. If Miami loses that game, it will be Clemson, regardless of the outcome of Clemson's game against South Carolina. Obviously, it's not a conference game. Big Ten, Oregon is already in. If Ohio State wins, they're in. If Ohio State loses and Penn State wins, Penn State would be in. If both Ohio State and Penn State lose, it would go to Indiana. If Indiana wins, if all three of them lose, it's Ohio State.
So winning, you're in for Ohio State. Simple.
Yes. Georgia has clinched a spot in the SEC title game. They will either be the 1 seed against Texas A&M or the 2 seed against Texas, depending on the outcome of Texas at Texas A&M.
What a game for this rivalry to come back to with conference
Right.
championship implications and certainly a playoff spot on the line. I love this. I absolutely
And
love
then
this.
we get to the Big 12 where there is a mess. There's a mess going on. So Arizona State, Iowa State, as you already said, win and you're in. If either or one or both of those teams lose, we have chaos. If
Iowa State plays Kansas State, by the way.
yes, and there's 4 teams tied at the top right now. Of course, Arizona State, Iowa State, then BYU and Colorado. Here's the thing: those 4 are not playing each other, so we could have a whole lot of different combinations of things happen here. There potentially could be a scenario where all 4 of those teams at the top lose. We would see some weird combination then of probably Kansas State and maybe still Arizona State. I don't know. Texas Tech, Baylor, and West Virginia are technically alive still. They, increasingly in order there, need a very convoluted set of things to happen. West Virginia, for example, obviously needs to win. They also need Arizona State, Iowa State, BYU, Colorado, Texas Tech, and Baylor to all lose, I believe, which is technically possible. There would then be, I think, Kansas State and West Virginia is the only possible scenario that West Virginia is in the title game. Other than that, everybody kind of could play anybody. I think Baylor has a limited set of options as well, but like it gets pretty wide open. Yeah, this is insane. Also need to consider Kansas has beaten all of the good teams on this list. So why the hell Big 12 went away from divisions? It's terrible. This was the worst year to do that.
Yeah.
Oh, and then, all right, the group of 5, we have the American is already set. It's been set for a little while. Army-Navy is not a conference game, so Army's been locked in for a minute. Tulane, regardless of the outcome of their game this week, will be in. Army against Tulane. Pretty fun matchup. I love that matchup, actually. Should be fascinating.
Is this game going to be in New Orleans or is it going to be at West Point?
I do not know that right now. I
on?
think that will be determined this week, depending on the outcome of Tulane-Memphis.
Okay.
I believe. Probably. Yeah, I think that's true.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Army doesn't have a conference loss. I don't know. I don't think Tulane does either. So,
do they?
They've got 2
losses. They lost to Kansas State and lost to Oklahoma.
Yeah, so they don't have a conference loss. So yeah, I would assume if Tulane loses, it'll be at West Point. Yeah.
I mean,
crazy.
It probably should be in West Point anyway, because
I think you're right,
they have a better overall win percentage. I'm not sure. There'd be some other tiebreaker there. Right. Conference USA will be Jacksonville State, regardless of the outcome of their game this week. However, all of the top 4 teams play each other this week. We had Jacksonville State and Sam Houston in what seemed like an elimination game. Last week, Jacksonville State won that, clinched their spot. Sam Houston is still alive, though, because they play Liberty, and Western Kentucky plays Jacksonville State. So there is a scenario where Sam Houston upsets Liberty and Western Kentucky upsets Jacksonville State. It doesn't matter. It's a rematch of Jacksonville State, Western Kentucky. But also, if Western Kentucky loses, Sam Houston can get in with a win, or Liberty would get in with a win. Liberty would also get in over Western Kentucky, even if Western Kentucky upsets Jacksonville State. That's why they're in that order on the slide. win and you're in for Liberty.
This next one's intriguing to me because, by the way, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
No. So if you're looking at the slide, he's got Chaos and then Buffalo.
Yeah.
Buffalo won.
Yes.
That's
the first step they needed. We're going to come back to the MAC. It's as convoluted as the Big 12, so just hang on. We'll hit the Mountain West first because it's a lot simpler. Win and you're in for UNLV. They'll be playing against Boise State. If they make it, Boise State's already clinched it. Colorado State wins and UNLV loses. It would be Colorado State against Boise State in the Mountain West Championship. But the Rebels hold the tiebreakers. The Sun Belt still has divisions, the only FBS conference with divisions anymore. Win and you're in for Marshall. Georgia Southern could steal that, though, if they win and Marshall loses. And then there are 3 teams that could technically get in from the West. Win and you're in for Louisiana. If they lose and Arkansas State wins, it would be Arkansas State. If both of them lose,
champions alive. Holy shit.
If both of them lose and South Alabama wins, we'll have the Jaguars from the West. Let's get back to the MAC now, where this is a little bit convoluted, but, it only gets convoluted once we get to Buffalo. So the winner of this week's matchup between Miami of Ohio at Bowling Green will be in the conference championship game for the MAC. This is a semifinal game for the MAC. Very cool. The Ohio Bobcats will be the opponent of the winner of Miami at Bowling Green, assuming Ohio can win this week. If Ohio loses, it is probable that we will get a rematch of Miami Bowling Green. However, no matter who the loser of Miami Bowling Green is, there is a scenario that I haven't worked out all the details of. It takes a very specific combination of teams to win this week in the MAC. If Ohio loses, it is possible that Buffalo gets in based on the tiebreakers of, now we're looking at common opponent win percentage. We're looking at overall non-conference win percentage at a certain point. The tiebreakers go very deep for this. There is a scenario that Buffalo gets in. It is probably already busted because of how convoluted it was. Let's look at the MAC
I would
scores,
say, though,
actually.
Well, Toledo is tied with Akron. And with how Buffalo beat the shit out of Kent State, I think they probably helped their case by putting up that many points.
Points scored is not a factor.
That's ridiculous.
In any tiebreaker anywhere across the FBS. They've gotten rid of that. That's been a point of contention for several years now. Actually, that's a story for a different time. Anyway, there is, though, a scenario where it comes down to a computer ranking where points scored isn't necessarily part of that metric, but yards allowed compared to your opponent would be a factor. And more points probably means more yards. It is better for Buffalo that they blew out Kent State, but not because of the points scored, because of the offensive and defensive efficiency ratings. I don't know which would be better for Buffalo here if Akron or Toledo wins. I would bet it's better if Akron wins.
I'm Team Chaos, so go Zips.
Would need Ball State to beat Ohio. Would need, what are the other MAC games this week even?
Who's NIU playing? Everybody's darling from the beginning of the year that everybody wanted to suck off and crown as champions.
NIU's playing Central Michigan. I'm not sure how that one matters. And then Eastern Michigan and Western Michigan
yeah,
are – I don't think that matters. I'm not sure. This was probably the biggest thing they could have done is blow out Kent State for the computer
care
ranking
what you
aspect.
can, right? Take care of what you can.
Right. Most likely, it will be the winner of Miami Bowling Green against Ohio. That assumes Ohio wins. If not, it'll probably be a rematch of Miami Bowling Green, which I would take. That's going to be an awesome game.
And it's always fun to see, too, because as far as like picks go, you just beat them again.
Right.
But you just beat them. Good luck beating them again. It's always
exactly.
It's always fun when you see that happen, though.
So FBS conferences, convoluted as hell. FCS conferences, we already know the champions. The regular season's over, except for the SWAC has a couple more games this week ahead of their conference championship. Next week, the only FCS conference with a conference championship game. Other than that, conference champions have already been decided. Big Sky, it is Montana State by themselves. Nobody else went undefeated in the Big Sky. Big South OVC, though, crowned 4 co-champions. SEMO got the automatic bid from the conference, but you also have UT Martin and Tennessee State who made the playoff as well. Tennessee Tech, co-champion of the Big South OVC, did not make the playoffs.
Probably because the committee forgot they were a school.
Both co-champions of the CAA made the playoffs in Richmond and Rhode Island. That was changed, I believe, either yesterday or today, where Rhode Island's loss to Delaware no longer counted against them in the CAA standings. The conference came out and said that Delaware is in a transition period and therefore should not count towards conference record. So at 8-0 in conference, Richmond was the champion until now. Officially 7-0 in conference. Rhode Island joined them as co-unbeatens, technically. And then the Ivy League, we have 3 co-champions. Would have been Harvard by themselves if they'd taken care of Yale, but now it is a tie between Harvard, Dartmouth, and Columbia.
Wild season that Dartmouth and Columbia are even in this conversation.
Right. The MEAC, it was South Carolina State the entire way. Only undefeated team in the MEAC, and they won it by a lot. It was not close at any point. The Missouri Valley, the Jackrabbits of South Dakota State claim the auto bid for some reason. I'm not even really sure how that math worked out. But North Dakota State and South Dakota are your co-champions of the conference. Wild. NDSU beat South Dakota State, but also lost to South Dakota. And South Dakota State beat South Dakota. So, who knows? The NEC, we've talked about how Central Connecticut Duquesne was a de facto NEC championship game. However, Duquesne went into that game undefeated. Central Connecticut went in with 1 loss. The way FCS conferences do things, they are co-champions. But Central Connecticut now has the tiebreaker with a head-to-head win, so they got the bid to the FCS playoffs. The NEC is not a 2-bid conference. Never has been, never will be. Duquesne got left out, even as co-champs. The Patriot League, kind of in the same boat here, where they're just not going to be a 2-bid league unless something insane happens. Lehigh does take the auto bid from the Patriot. Holy Cross left out in the cold.
And you'd have thought Holy Cross might have been able to get in on the resume and what they've done in recent years, but yeah, like you said, the Patriot League's not strong enough to do that. Yeah.
Pioneer League, Drake all alone here. And the SoCon had Mercer all alone as champions of the league.
And it was really nice
for the Bears.
Yeah, it was really nice to see them start and finish a season. I said it all year. I'm gonna ride with them until they lose that they have that first loss late in the season. It never really showed up this year, and Mercer has played fantastic football throughout the year.
Moving right along, Southland Conference was Incarnate Words. Nobody else's.
It was theirs to lose, let's be real.
Yeah. And the United Athletic Conference at Abilene Christian, which leaves the SWAC, which we don't know the champion of yet, but we do know the divisions have already been clinched. Jackson State will be playing Southern for the SWAC title here in, I guess, next week.
I'm interested to see what the Jaguars do. They've been a sneaky team all year.
Yep.
I would like to see them go up against South Carolina State versus seeing JSU in the Celebration Bowl again, but you never know. We'll see what happens.
On the flip side of that, JSU, South Carolina State should be a great game this year.
Absolutely. Maybe the SWAC will finally win it, huh?
Probably not. They never do. Thanksgiving Day. We have Memphis at Tulane. It's the only FBS game on Thanksgiving Day. The Egg Bowl got moved off of Thanksgiving Day for the first time in a very long time. For some reason that I'm not privy to. I don't know if it is the only game in Division I on Thanksgiving. Let me double check that real quick. That would be fascinating if there's something else. There is actually the Turkey Day Classic. Tuskegee at Alabama State is also on Thanksgiving Day, but we're not picking that game because it's a D2 school against Alabama State.
I hate Tug right now.
Yeah.
He is historically bad at picking non-Saturday games. And he picked the Tigers. Look, I'm going to be completely honest with you. I don't know how much football I want to watch on Thanksgiving because I know the Bears are probably getting blown out against the Lions. I don't know that I can mentally handle Memphis truly disappointing me. And I worry that that's what's coming. I think Tulane's a very good team. I think Memphis is a very good team. I think Memphis is poorly coached. I think that's starting to show its head in a lot of different ways. I'm not at the point where I'm like, oh, I want them to start losing so they're fire Silverfield. Like I'm not Troy Calhoun hate levels yet. I am starting to see a lot of the issues that some people have brought up, and especially with just how Memphis' offense has looked all year. They've never found that second gear, and whether that's the coach, whether that's leadership in the locker room, looking at Seth Hennigan, whatever it is, it seems like they're not reaching that next level. If there is a time in the year to do it, it's this game. Now,
actually hilarious to me that you're talking about the coaching issues, and I have already seen Ryan Silverfield floated for the North Carolina job.
That's amazing. I know so many Memphis fans that hope that happens.
John Summerall's also been floated for that job. So
here's the other thing.
The American getting pilfered again.
Memphis fans are like, why don't you think anybody wants to take Ryan Silverfield? I'm like, guys, he's still fucking winning games. Right. And here's the thing. I get where Memphis fans are frustrated. I really do. Look at their 2 losses. Maybe an incredible season. And I've said the stat after the game. They ran how many plays that they had never – there was no film on them, not just from this year, but last year. I mean, yeah, Memphis looked lost. When I heard that, I was like, I'm not mad anymore. It makes complete sense why they were lost. It was really bad. Like, don't get me wrong, really, really bad. I wouldn't expect – even if it's a play you're not expecting, I wouldn't expect it to catch you that off guard the entire game. But I can accept it, right? You had zero prep for what they came out and did. UTSA, this is kind of the Memphis fan base not understanding. They had a bad season with some bad losses, but that doesn't make them a bad team. The UTSA, when I looked,
the quarterback is a McCown. Of course, they're going to win games they're not supposed to.
When I looked at the schedule, there were 3 games I was worried about for Memphis. It was FSU, it was UTSA, and it was Tulane. And I said, depending on what that Navy team is, we'll see what happens. Those are the 4 teams I said at the start of the year. I'm hoping Memphis comes out, wins this game, gets to 10 wins. They've done well in bowl games under Ryan Silverfield. Get to 11 wins, that'd be the best season I think Memphis has ever had if they got to 11 wins. So I'm I'm disappointed that we're not talking about Memphis going to the conference championship game against Army, potentially getting into the college football playoff. I think every Memphis fan is. I'm still very happy with where this team is.
I know if you'd beat UTSA or Navy, just one of them, this would be a play-in game, which would be very fun.
Yes.
I'm not going to keep rubbing it in. I'm picking Tulane. Tulane is a 14-point favorite. It's
at
in
home.
New Orleans.
Yeah.
Right.
It's going to be a tough game. Tough game. I'm excited for it, though. I'm very excited for it. Could be a
I'm going to fault you for picking your team, though. I am going to fault Tug for picking your team.
Yeah, what
That's
an
terrible.
Asshole. It could be a look. We talk college basketball for a second. Memphis is in the championship, the Maui Invitational.
Who cares?
I do, because the champion of that tournament has won the NCAA championship 4 times. And this is the first time Memphis has gone to the championship in this tournament, probably the third or fourth time that I can remember that they've been in it. It could be a huge week for Memphis sports, and I'm here for it. I love it.
Jumping to Friday, a massive Friday slate of games, some very big ones as well. We're going to be picking every game that has some conference implications, every game that has some bowl implications, and then a couple extras that just looked fun. So we are picking literally every game that happens on Friday, and then we're leaving out a few bottom feeders on Saturday. But there'll be a lot of FBS games this week. Just warning everybody. Oregon State at Boise State kicks us off at noon on Friday, which means a 9 a.m. local, I believe, which is insane. And we're all picking the Broncos. If they win this and win the Mountain West, it is looking pretty possible they could get a bye in the 12-team playoff.
Wild.
Oklahoma State at Colorado. Of course, no implications here for Oklahoma State after the incredibly disappointing season that they have had. Looking to avoid going 0-9 in conference here at Colorado, which is a pretty tall task. Colorado needs this one to stay alive, though, of course, they're also needing some help to get into the Big 12 title game.
Do we think that this is the end for Gundy? Do we think this is the first nail in the coffin?
Honestly, no. I wouldn't be surprised if it takes back-to-back seasons like this for him to actually get the axe. It's Mike Gundy.
True.
How do you get rid of that guy?
He's a man. He's 57.
Right. Minnesota at Wisconsin. Of course, Wisconsin needs this one to be bowl eligible, as I've already said in the show. We are all picking the Badgers to do so.
Which is wild after the game Wisconsin just had. Holy shit.
I know. And the game Minnesota just had, honestly.
Yeah.
Miami at Bowling Green is on Friday. This would be the first leg of the MAC championship decided. And I'm going with the Falcons. Tug's also going with the Falcons, which now scares me.
Taste your own medicine.
But you have Miami. What are you looking at with this game?
From what I have seen, Miami, as consistent as you can be in the MAC, right? That's been Miami this year. So I have a feeling that they're going to be able to at least carry that through this game. Now, if they get in a situation where they have to face off against Bowling Green next week, I would probably flip and take Bowling Green in the championship game. But at least for game one, I'm going with the Red Hawks.
This is kind of a game. It's honestly an easy pick for me because the best player on the field is also on the home team, which means I get to pick that team every time. Harold Fannin Jr. is the best player that's not in Heisman consideration in the country. He should be up for the Blitnikoff. He's only up for the Mackey, which is an abomination. He's a 1,300-yard tight end. He is the greatest player. that Bowling Green has ever had or ever will have.
I can't wait for him to end up on some shitty NFL team and get traded and bounced around and never used properly.
I'm sure he'll get drafted in the second round by the Patriots. All right, Ball State at Ohio. We're all picking the Bobcats here.
Which just means that we're going to get Miami Bowling Green rematch here.
I'm pretty sure. Looking that way. Navy at East Carolina. Not a whole lot of implications, but just a really good matchup, honestly.
Absolutely.
If I'm picking anybody to beat some Pirates, it better be the United States Navy.
ECU has turned in a surprisingly good season this year as well.
Well, it didn't start that way.
Exactly. And I was getting there after the way it started. They pulled it back together. This is a team that we said we could see them being on the come up here, but it was really going to depend on how things went. And we thought it'd be early. This is what they do. They have these good seasons, and then as they do that, you finally start to see, okay, these are the guys that are going to lead them the next couple of years. I would expect ECU to kind of be in this conversation of tops of the American Athletic Conference for a couple of years to come.
Mike Houston was fired several games ago now. At this point, basically at the mid-season mark for ECU, interim head coach Blake Harrell took over. They're 4-0 under him to this point, looking to go undefeated on the season. 5-0 with their interim head coach would be insane. ECU has already announced Blake Harrell will be the full-time head coach next season.
I'm just curious for Army and Navy. Both teams have mixed in a passing offense in a very interesting way, like more than what we've really seen. They've been strictly triple option. Air Force is still strictly triple option. I just wonder if they're going to completely go away from the triple option. I don't think the academies can afford to do that, but I do wonder if maybe there are some other teams out there that are kind of middling here. Some of these better, higher up group of 5 teams that say, hey, maybe we mix in some of this and put in a little more unpredictability, because it's worked out great and you're going to get better talent at some of these other schools. I just don't know that anybody's ballsy enough to do this, because when it works, it's beautiful. And unfortunately for Army, like, I think Notre Dame was just too big for them to really do anything against. Navy had their worst game by far, especially with ball control.
I have some news for you. The Rice has hired Scott Abel, head coach out of Davidson, who runs a modified triple option at Davidson. And
there you go.
If Rice goes to that system, that would be the 3rd triple option type team in the American. Wild. Be very fun.
With E.J. Warner at quarterback for at least 2 more years.
And moving right along sticking on Friday, though, because there are a lot of Friday games. The Egg Bowl got moved to the day after Thanksgiving for some reason.
Unfortunate.
Mississippi State at Ole Miss. We're all taking the Rebels because Mississippi State just is ass right now.
Yeah.
But it's the Egg Bowl, so anything could happen.
So I fully expect Mississippi State to stomp them.
I can't wait. That'd be so fun. I don't even hate Ole Miss like you do. That'd just be very fun for me. Liberty is at Sam Houston. I don't really believe in Liberty right now. They've lost some games they really shouldn't. They've kept it close with some teams. I love Sam Houston's defense. If Sam Houston can get off to a good start here at home, I think they do knock off the Flames, keep themselves alive for that Conference USA title game.
I just believe in Jamie Chadwell at this point. Honestly, sure. That's where I'm putting a lot of this. He's kept this team in it.
I know when you're in for Liberty, it's hard to pick against them.
Yeah.
But it is all the way halfway across the country at Sam Houston.
Yeah, that's true.
Utah State is at Colorado State. Colorado State, of course, as we talked about, needs to win and needs UNLV to lose. we're all picking the Rams to pull off the first leg of that against Utah State here.
And just good timing, right? I mean, Utah State is not an intimidating opponent, and you get to have it at home. This is exactly where the Rams want to be right now.
Texas State at South Alabama. I just want to say, first of all, we're picking the same team for all three of these matchups on this slide, which is automatically scary. We're taking Texas State against South Alabama, knocking South Alabama out of the Sun Belt race. We're taking Stanford against San Jose State on the road. Feels kind of crazy to me, actually. I think San Jose State's going to put up one hell of a fight. And then we're all taking Georgia against Georgia Tech, which, of course, we are. But there is potential for this to be a decent game. And I'm actually excited for all three of these matchups.
Don't count out a rivalry.
One I'm least confident in is probably Texas State at South Alabama, though, which I know you're going to talk about how shit South Alabama is.
I hate both of these teams.
Why?
No reason.
Okay, fair enough.
I just want to. South Alabama pisses me off because they chant USA at their games, but not for the United States of America, for the University of South Alabama, and that's why it pisses me off. And then, I don't know, Texas State. I didn't know Texas State existed until I lived in San Antonio, and San Marcos was right there. And I was like, oh, yeah, I'll side with, UTSA. They're right here. Fuck Texas State. And it's just kind of stuck. Okay. So I thought you picked this game to just be an asshole to me, knowing that I didn't like either of these teams, really. But there are a lot of implications here. I think Texas State has had a better program. They've been building to this more. So I think they're going to want it more. Whereas South Alabama, I don't want to say they've lucked into it. Certainly they've had a great season. I want to take that away from them. But it's not been the same build-up that Texas State has had.
You are such a hater. It's
what fuels me.
San Jose State is actually a 3-point favorite. We're all taking the underdog on the road in Stanford.
Oh, fuck.
Yeah. Nebraska at Iowa. Technically, no implications at all here. Both teams are already bowl eligible, and nobody's even close to sniffing the playoff or anything like that. I just think this is going to be a really good game, and it is a rivalry matchup now with a trophy and everything. So, yes, it's definitely 100% a rivalry. I think it's just Nebraska hates everybody in a radius around them. But
we've got better corn.
If you're close enough to Nebraska, you will become a rival just inherently.
Just
it is at Iowa. I'm going with the Hawkeyes. Also feel like Nebraska may lose a touch of the fire that they had under them because they did get bowl eligible.
I'm loving freshman quarterbacks this year, and I like what Dylan Raiola has got going on. I'm excited to see where this season and where the future seasons for Nebraska football goes.
I had a really bad joke. I'm not going to say it. Utah at UCF is no implications for anything. Both teams are out of a bowl eligibility race as well as being out of the Big 12 race. Two of a very few select teams that are out of the Big 12 race. I think I'm in the Big 12 race somehow. But Utah and UCF are not. At the same time, I think this is an interesting matchup. And honestly don't know who to go with here. I kind of went with the home team. And I don't really trust Utah, but UCF's giving me no reason to have any confidence either.
I also don't trust UCF, or I also don't trust Utah, but I'm taking them because UCF, Houston, and Cincinnati have been pretty dog water in the Big 12 this year. That's kind of where I'm leaning, even if I think they might get a little bit of an extra boost being at the bounce house.
This also was the last game on Friday, and I didn't want to leave us a slide with one game. So
that's fair.
For aesthetic reasons, we had to take Utah UCF. Saturday, moving right along, starting us off with a very hot slate at noon. I'm going to the game this season. I'm very excited. I've
I'm
never
happy
been
for
to
you.
the game before because, of course, I haven't. It's very expensive to go to the game. But this was my combination birthday and Christmas present, which means that's how expensive it is because my birthday's in June and Christmas is obviously in December. That's all I'm getting this year. I'm very content with that.
I want to say before I let you go off with this game, every year that we've picked, Michigan unfortunately has won.
Yeah.
And I believe last year, I went with Michigan because I did not want to see another instance of us putting all of our eggs in the Ohio State basket, especially with the season Michigan was having last year. This year, that's not the case. And I thought about it. I thought about going with Michigan, but I can't. Like the drop off has been unreal. It's not the worst drop off we've seen. I mean, FSU is playing football this weekend, right?
Are they though? Does it really count as football?
Does it count? Yeah. But it is insane, and there are so many people like, oh, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Connor Stalions, it doesn't matter. Yeah, it does matter. What are you talking about? Look at this team this year. They're a shell of their former selves. Sure, they lost some big pieces, but come on. They should not be this bad. And with that, the floor is yours.
I don't really have to add a ton to that. I'll be honest with you. I think everybody in the college football world, anybody who might stumble upon this podcast, who's listening this deep in, already knows all the stories about this game. I'm not going to add anything new necessarily that you don't know, other than potentially you might not remember the last time that Ohio State was favored by at least 20 points. The team up north declined to play the game. Now, they can say it was because the team had COVID. Here's the thing, though. There were actually tighter restrictions on practice than on the games, the way the Big Ten rule was written in 2020. And they practiced the day before and the day after the game was supposed to have taken place. And they just didn't play for some made-up safety concern reasons. Yeah, we are 21-point favorites in the shoe. This is a great year to have tickets to the game. Louisville is at Kentucky at noon on the SEC network. Luckily, if you're a Louisville fan, that means you live in Kentucky because no one else in the country is a Louisville fan. And that means you also have the SEC network because you're in Kentucky and they assume you're a Kentucky fan because who in the right mind would be a Louisville fan? Most people in the city of Louisville are Kentucky fans. It's just that's the nature of a commuter school versus this state flagship.
Ask me about Memphis.
Yeah. Right. However, Louisville's a better team. I know it's in Kroger Field. I got to go with the Cardinals.
I am going with the home team. I think Kentucky has shown some great flashes, obviously some big SEC upsets this year. Is it maintainable? Are they actually that good? No, I don't think so. And, I could give you a ton of reasons why, but I think they'll get a little extra juice at home to get this done against the Cardinals. And for the record, Tug is taking Louisville as well. And in our next matchup, Tennessee at Vanderbilt, he's taking Tennessee, which I think might be a little bit of a risky play, but you're also taking the Vols, so take it away.
Tennessee, they are 10.5-point favorites, right? It's like for a reason. I'm not just saying that that's the reason I'm taking them. They are more talented at
100%.
Basically every position on the field except for quarterback. I can't name another position where Vanderbilt has them
close.
Even close.
Yeah.
Even the coaching staff, I would pick Tennessee's over Vanderbilt's 10 times out of 10. Here's the issue. It's at Vanderbilt with this Vanderbilt team, and there's just something in the air. I don't, however, expect this to be a home team or home game for Vanderbilt in reality. This will be a, at minimum, 50-50 crowd. And just like we were talking about with Louisville, Kentucky, like you're talking about with Memphis, I'm sure the vast majority of people in the city of Nashville are still UT fans. So I'm going with Tennessee for the I don't expect that they're not going to look past this game by any means.
No,
I
absolutely
think
not.
Tennessee has it fully on their radar. They need to be aware of this and need to be ready for this. Unlike Alabama walking into Vanderbilt earlier this season, it won't be that situation. What probably will happen is that this will be a very close game for 2, maybe 3 quarters, and Tennessee will pull away at the end.
As I said, I'm riding with Diego Pavia until he's no longer in college football. And when he goes to the UFL, I'll ride with that team too. Come to Memphis, baby. That being said, I also hate Josh Heupel, and I think he has the most punchable face in college football. So fuck Tennessee, fuck Josh Heupel. Let's go anchor down.
He looks exactly like Bobby.
Damn it, Bobby.
Also, Akron just won in overtime over Toledo. What the hell? Is chaos
Buffalo
happening?
eliminated yet? Yes. Has Buffalo been eliminated yet?
Oh, man. All right, the Textile Bowl, South Carolina at Clemson. I'm going with the home team. This is a coin toss to me, dude. I don't know if there's a real way to pick any good reason for either team. I think with the I'm not certain it's win and you're in for South Carolina. I feel pretty strongly it's win and you're in for Clemson, kind of no matter what happens in the ACC. Because I think either way, like Miami beats SMU, SMU's getting knocked out, and just Clemson goes in. I think there's going to be that fire under them. I'm going with the Tigers at home. It feels crazy for one of us not to pick the home team, so I'm falling on that sword.
It is wild to me that Tug is not going with the home team here. He's riding with the Cox with me. And
you love cock riding.
I do love riding the cock. Lenoris Sellers has been phenomenal. And I think that's really the biggest difference between South Carolina and Clemson. And maybe it's because Clemson, the ACC, hasn't gotten any type of shine this year the way the SEC has, and certainly not the way that South Carolina has, at least through the lens I've been watching college football this year. I think South Carolina's had a much tougher road getting to this point in the season, getting to this game. I think they're battle-tested. They're going to be ready. As much as I want to talk up Sellers, he might also be the weak point in this game going into this environment. I'm not saying it's going to be easy, but I am going with the Gamecocks. I think they're the better team. And that defense, too. Nobody's really talking about the South Carolina defense as much as they should be.
They're also not talking about Raheem Sanders, who's one of my favorite
Rocket.
in the country.
Yep.
Here's my hot take on this game, which is the coldest take you'll ever see in your life. The most lukewarm take of all time. If this were a home game for South Carolina, this is a 30-point game for South Carolina. With it being a home game for Clemson, I'm calling it like a 28-26 kind of a fucking brawl. Either way, whoever wins, it's going to be brutal. If this were a home game for South Carolina, they win by infinite points. They literally can't stop scoring points.
Yeah.
Every play is another touchdown.
I love it. I love it. It's such a balanced team. They're so fun to watch, man.
They are. They're really. I'm very impressed this season with South Carolina, no matter the outcome of this particular game. UTSA at Army. We were just talking about how good UTSA is, even though they are not one of the bowl eligible squads, unfortunately for UTSA. If they win this matchup here, that would be their 7th win. They are bowl eligible. I was wrong. Yeah. I thought they were still 5.
They just have no shot at a conference championship game. They lost too many too early.
Also, I know this game doesn't actually have any implications for the American title game. Army's already locked in. At the same time, it's one of our conference game contenders. Wanted to pick this game. We are all taking the Black Knights.
Also worth mentioning, UTSA has not won a single game on the road this year.
Oof.
Yeah.
That's tough.
Yeah.
Illinois at Northwestern up next. The Land of Lincoln Trophy on the line here in Chicago. Evanston, more technically. I think this will be at the practice facility.
It's wild to me they wouldn't have this game at Wrigley Field.
Yeah. Yeah. That would have been cool. Nope, it's at the little practice facility with the impromptu stands all on the riverside, the lakeside. We are all picking the Illini. They have pulled out some games I didn't think they really should. They've also lost a game or two that I didn't think they should. They are better than Northwestern. So
it is at Wrigley. It is at Wrigley Field.
Are you sure about that?
Yeah. I'm looking at Vivid Seats right now. 4% of tickets left. Illinois at Northwestern, Wrigley Field, Chicago, Illinois. Thank God.
Everybody else is telling me it's at Northwestern.
I mean, Northwestern is the home team, but I'm looking.
Yeah, I'm saying they're telling me it's in Evanston. I'm looking at 2 different sources in front of me.
That's a shame.
Why would Vivid Seats be different then? That's stupid. Somebody is being dumb. We need to figure this out. This is going to bother me until we figure this out. Okay, on Illinois' website, it's at Wrigley Field. So I'm going to believe it's at Wrigley.
There you go.
These other folks are wrong. That's good.
I'm way more excited for this game now. Shit, I might just drive up to Chicago. Fuck yeah. That's awesome.
I highly doubt that you will.
I won't.
Be cool if you did, though.
Be a lot cooler if I did.
My boss at my new job actually is a graduate of Illinois.
Nice.
And I'll be rooting for them a little bit. But not too much.
I played in an alumni basketball game for my high school. And one of my high school, well, I never actually had him, but he was a math teacher before I graduated. And I knew he was an Illinois grad. And I also knew that he played basketball when he was in high school. He also played, and that was the day I discovered that he has an Illinois tattoo. It's the block I with Chief Illinois on the front on his calf. And I was like, that's pretty cool. And then he shot a 3 right in my face. And I said, I fucking hate you right now.
Next up at noon on ESPN Plus, the UConn game. UConn, UMass, UC at UM.
Yes.
We're all taking the Huskies in Amherst because UMass is UAss this season.
For those that celebrate, this game's at 12 Eastern on ESPN Plus. Don't miss it. Please tell me you'll have an earbud in with this up on your phone.
No, while I'm in the shoe, are you fucking insane? I'll record it to enjoy later on my own time. Okay. Duke at Wake Forest, part of the Tobacco Road. We're all taking the road team in the Blue Devils. Wake Forest, even if they win, will not be bowl eligible. Continuing potentially a fantastic season for Duke. This would be their 9th win if they get it done, vying for a possible 10-win season on a season that I really thought they'd be middle-of-the-road ACC team.
And I did not see Wake Forest dropping off this bad. This is kind of crazy.
And then Kansas at Baylor. With a win here, Kansas would become bowl eligible. Finally hitting 500 at 6-6. Also, Baylor needs to win this one to theoretically stay alive in the Big 12 title race. I'm going with the home team. Baylor's been insanely hot, just as hot as Kansas has, honestly. And they're at home. I know Kansas is playing a very exciting brand of football right now, and they're winning by a lot, even on the road against some of the best in the Big 12. I think it'd be a real shame if one of us didn't at least pick the home team here. I knew everybody else was going to pick Kansas.
I completely agree with you, and I don't want to speak for Tug, but in my mind, not only is Kansas playing with a lot more momentum and a lot more passion right now, I think they're the more talented of the two teams. So I'm going to take the road equation out of it because we've already seen that doesn't matter to them right now. They're going out there and getting the job done. So I'm going with Jayhawks.
Right. Agree enough with that. That's for sure. West Virginia at Texas Tech. The only two of the 4, I guess, contenders that actually play each other, Iowa State, Kansas State, will be later on the slides here. West Virginia at Texas Tech is a very important game for the Big 12 standings. Even if it doesn't determine the champion, this will be very influential in how the bowl matchups actually take shape and which team gets slotted where. I'm going with the road team because West Virginia and Texas Tech both make no sense at any point this season. So I'm doing the inverse of my thinking. And that is supposedly Tug's strategy for West Virginia games. But as we discussed last week as well, it only works when you're the only one applying it. So now Texas Tech will win. It is science.
Me picking Texas Tech never goes well.
Keep
that in mind.
I don't think that your bad luck is enough to stop the proven Big 12 science of one of us has to do something insane, and if anybody else does it, it will not happen. And then the team will, is one of us picking them, will win. It's just how it goes.
That's just science.
It just is. Science. It is real.
It is what it is. Next up, we got Louisiana at Louisiana Monroe. But the Warhawks have had a good season, a respectable season, one that I don't think too many people saw coming. But the Raging Cajuns got this on lock, I think. And we all think that.
And we're all picking Western Michigan at home against Eastern Michigan as well, which is our first non-noon game of the day at 1:30.
I will also throw in here that's probably because Tug and I have a friend who's a Western grad, so we don't want to pick against Eastern because that kind of feels gross and wrong. But I think Western's just put together a better season, even if it's not to the standard that we had maybe grown accustomed to under their previous head coach.
And moving right along here, Coastal Carolina at Georgia State. Coastal needs this to become bowl eligible, but it's at Georgia State, which is the wrong place to play if you want to become bowl eligible.
Yeah, you could say that.
And then Pitt at Boston College. This game is on the CW, which may be the best logic that you have for taking Pitt. Not going to lie.
Yeah, I mean, they started out so strong. I figure if they're going to recapture that, it's going to be on the CW the last week of the year.
Fair enough. Tug and I are both taking Boston College in that matchup, though, and we're also both taking Arkansas State at home against Old Dominion. You're falling into the trap that I've been privy to, where I want to believe in Old Dominion. I think it's just more hatred of Arkansas State for you, right?
It's more hatred of Butch Jones specifically. Arkansas
Well,
State,
yeah.
I'm fine with. It's specifically Butch Jones and his champions of life.
Fair enough. Moving right along here, Maryland at Penn State. Penn State's had a couple of really dumb close ones, but we're expecting them to win against Maryland, which, if it all goes to plan so far, that would put Indiana squarely in 4th place in the Big Ten. Penn State in 3rd. Very much still possible that both Penn State and Indiana make the playoff. But if it happens as we're predicting right now, it would be Oregon, Ohio State in the Big Ten Championship in Indianapolis.
Playoffs.
And then Notre Dame at USC. USC is bowl eligible after their win against UCLA, but I'm not ready to call this like a must win for Notre Dame. Like,
No.
if they lose this game, it's possible they still make the playoffs.
I think they lose this game. They probably end up 10 or 11.
I hate that, though.
I don't see them dropping out of the top 12 if they lose this game.
They should.
I
put this
agree.
on top of their loss to NIU. Fuck
Yeah.
them, that's what I say.
And last but not least on this slide, we have the Iron Bowl. Now, I would 100% take Alabama if the powers that be had done what they wanted to do and said, you know what, Auburn's a really good team. They're number 25 because Alabama, you know, they got it's going to be a great matchup. It's the SEC. It's Auburn. It's Alabama. We got a ranked match. Fuck off. Auburn is going to win this game because Alabama is not near as good of a team. And like we kind of talked about already, they're playing a different brand of football. They're playing with way more emotion. It's going to be way too fucking much, especially in that environment in Tuscaloosa. Auburn's playing for their lives here. They win this game, they're bowl eligible. I'm taking the road team here. I'm taking the Tigers. War Eagle.
This is also the game that Auburn needs to become bowl eligible. If they win this game, they would be 6-6. Also true that Alabama has never won the Iron Bowl in Tuscaloosa with any coach other than Nick Saban. That is a true fact that we dug into in the Discord pretty deeply. Of course, the Iron Bowl used to be played in Birmingham in the Iron Bowl every year, but there was this little stretch, 1895 and 1901. It was in Tuscaloosa. Auburn won both those games in shutouts. And then from 2000 to 2007, Auburn just had a stretch where they were really dominant, including every time they played in Tuscaloosa. So,
which
got there.
I knew, right? I knew it had been in Birmingham. That's why it's called the Iron Bowl, the old Iron Lady, like Legion Stadium. Like I knew that, but it's still just an unbelievable stat to me. I was like, there's no fucking way that's true. It is.
Yeah, I don't really know what to do with that information, to be honest with you, except I guess I should have picked Auburn. Who knows? Oh, man.
At 3 losses, the gymnastics of getting Alabama into the playoff, like I can see the path. It makes some sense, I guess. I don't like it. I wouldn't say I hate it. At 4 losses, if they're even mentioned in the same breath as the playoffs.
Playoffs?
I might be done with college football. I might be done. I won't be, but I might be.
Moving right along, Miami at Syracuse. Miami wins and they're in the ACC championship game, but it is at Syracuse, which is not the easiest place to play in the ACC by any means.
Yep, and that's exactly where I'm coming from here. I'm a little stunned Tug's going with the U because he also loves the home field advantage that the Orange get.
And then Cal at SMU has no real implications other than just it involves SMU, and SMU will be in the ACC championship game. So if you haven't watched them play, highly recommend it. Very fun brand of football. Also, Cal's just a sneaky, decent team. It'd be very fun for Cal to knock them down a peg, and then SMU wins the ACC championship game as a 2-loss team and keeps the ACC out of the playoff for some reason. That would just be stupid fun. Probably not going to happen. We're all picking the ponies.
Absolutely, we're picking the Pony Express and Arizona State. Even though they're on the road, we're all picking the Sun Devils here.
Yeah. Win and you're in for Arizona State, as we talked about. The only thing that makes sense in the Big 12 right now. So it means it won't happen.
Probably not.
Arkansas is at Missouri. Just a really good matchup here. Gotta say, this was a fun game this season. No idea who's really going to win.
I think this is another one, too, where so many people wrote off Arkansas early in the season, and they have not been great in conference. But they're a better team than I think a lot of people are willing to give them credit for. And Mizzou, I mean, they've honestly been a little bit underwhelming this year.
Yeah. People were projecting them to do wonderful things based on the win of the Cotton Bowl against Ohio State, which everybody in their right minds knew was a little bit misleading. But AP voters are not in their right minds. So I had them in the preseason top 10, and they're still in the top 25 because, of course, they are. But Rutgers at Michigan State. If Michigan State wins this game, they will be bowl eligible. Rutgers already is bowl eligible at 6-5. Tough matchup here to pick, honestly. I truly do not know who's going to win this game. I picked the home team with a little extra fire under them to get them bowl eligible, but I'm not confident in that. And the fact that you're all going with me doesn't actually help. So who knows what's going to happen here?
That's fair. That's very fair. Next up, we got NC State and North Carolina. North Carolina is already bowl eligible. I got the question of, is Mac Brown going to coach in that bowl game, although he has been fired? He is coaching this week. So Tug thinks, hey, maybe the Tar Heels are going to send him out on a win. On the other side of the field, you got NC State, who certainly underperformed this year. They win, and they're bowl eligible. It's going to be a very exciting battle of North Carolina and another leg of Tobacco Road.
But it is possible that North Carolina gets the just fired their head coach boost. Even though Mac Brown is coaching, they don't get the interim head coach boost, but they got the the witch is dead. Long live the new whoever it is potential boost. It happens. It's a real thing. So
it's a real thing.
Jacksonville State at Western Kentucky. Already talked about the implications for this one in Conference USA. Western Kentucky needs to win to stay alive here. They also need Liberty to lose to Sam Houston. But we're taking Western Kentucky to beat the first leg of that. Jacksonville State already has clinched their spot in the championship game, and it's at Western Kentucky. I think the Hilltoppers are going to give it everything they possibly have and come out with the win here.
As do I. As much as I love saying Go Cox on this show, Western's just been a more put-together team all year long. And our next game, TCU at Cincinnati, much like I said with UCF, these teams that have gone from the American to the Big 12 have not been that successful. I think TCU's got it handily here.
I also picked this game because, of course, this is Cincinnati going for bowl eligibility, but I wanted to point out the absolute irony of how hard Cincinnati fought to get into this power conference. Going to be so much more recognition for us, going to be so much more visibility, so much more revenue. And then they are fighting to become bowl eligible at 6 p.m. on ESPN Plus.
I love it. I love it.
State at Georgia Southern. If App State wins this game, they will be bowl eligible. But Georgia Southern needs to win this one to stay alive in the Sun Belt race. Of course, they are also relying on Marshall to lose, as we talked about before. But you and I are both taking the Eagles here at home. Appalachian State just doesn't seem as strong as they once were.
But they do App State things, and I'm sure that's what Tug's keying in on, especially after how they burned us last week.
If they do win this week, they would be 6-5 on the season because of that canceled game against Liberty. What a massive game that would have been.
Mm-hmm.
But it got hurricaned. So unfortunate for several reasons. Moving right along here, Purdue at Indiana. I believe this is the old Oaken bucket game.
With all the I's and P's falling out of it.
Yeah. We're all taking Indiana. Obviously, Indiana's the much better team this season. Has been for a long time, actually, even though Purdue somehow sneaks into some Big Ten championship games on occasion when it was divisions. Ain't going to happen anymore. And also, Purdue this season is not good.
This next one, Florida at Florida State, to think preseason, if you'd have said you are all going to confidently pick Florida in this matchup, all three of us would have laughed at you. This game is in Tallahassee, Florida State preseason top 10, and there's not a doubt in my mind that Florida's going to take care of business.
Same here, which is why I'm picking this game why I had us pick this game, just to talk about that insanity. Florida could be a 7-win team if they win their bowl game, potentially an 8-win team this year, which nobody in their right minds would have even considered a possibility in the preseason. And people are still questioning whether or not they should have kept Billy Napier. Just come on.
Wild.
Oklahoma at LSU. Both teams are bowl eligible. Oklahoma got that after they beat Alabama last week. What a way to secure Bowl-Oklahoma. But at LSU is going to be a pretty fascinating game. 7-point spread, actually 6-point spread for LSU right now in Death Valley. But Oklahoma just came off of beating Alabama 24-3. Maybe they have a little bit of confidence in them, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, and that's why I'm taking the Sooners. Such a hot win, man. You gotta love it. I am a little upset we're not getting Oklahoma State this year. Probably would have been another good matchup, even with the struggles Oklahoma State's had this year. But Oklahoma hasn't exactly been bulletproof this year either. Unfortunately, we're not getting that. Hopefully, this game can live up to some of that Red River shootout that we're going to be missing this year.
I just don't expect Oklahoma to be able to live up to the emotional high of last week. Also, we definitely had a Red River shootout. You're thinking of
Bedlam. Yeah. As soon as I said it, I was like, that's not right.
Yeah, it's fine. Washington at Oregon. Believe it or not, Washington beat Oregon the last 2 times they played. So Oregon will be rather motivated to win this game. It is at home for the Ducks, but Oregon has already clinched a spot in the title game. Washington has already clinched bowl eligibility at 6-5. Yeah, we're all taking the Ducks, though.
Absolutely. Then next up, we're heading down to Kyle Field, Texas at Texas A&M, a rivalry renewed. I'm going to give it to the 12th man here. Texas has shown some kinks in the armor. Texas A&M is going to be pissed after last week. They're at home. They're getting this rivalry back going. You bet your ass they want to win the first one.
This is one of the largest stadiums in the country, and the cheapest seat available right now is $527. This is a pretty big game, gotta say. Tug and I are both going with Texas. I do believe they are the better team, even though it looks like Arch Manning will be at quarterback and not Quinn Ewers. I actually don't know if that's a problem for Texas. It might be just fine. I don't know if there's any drop off there for them. The way Quinn Ewers has played the past couple of weeks anyway. But it's at Kyle Field. Anything can happen.
I'm ready for it. I'm ready for all of them. Horns down, baby.
Look, I'm not happy I'm picking Texas. I would much rather be horns down. I just don't trust A&M.
Also fair.
And then we have Farmageddon, Kansas State at Iowa State. I kind of feel obligated to go with the home team here just because of how insane the Big 12 has been. I feel like the only measure of stability is Iowa State at home, which feels dumb because it's Kansas State, but also when you're in for Iowa State, it feels like this has the potential still to be Iowa State's best season ever. I almost wonder if they're still a year early based on how young some of their roster is.
Yep.
Which tells you how good I think this Iowa State team can be at their
I've
best.
seen Kansas State rise to the occasion all year, and that's kind of where this is coming from. No better time than right now to do it again.
Would open up a can of chaos in the Big 12, that's for sure.
Also
at least one of those spots becoming open for something. Nevada at UNLV. UNLV has already, of course, secured their spot as a win and you're in the conference title game, but they have not actually clinched a place in the title game until they beat Nevada, which we're all predicting them to do. The Rebels are also, I believe, number 22 in the College Football Playoff Committee rankings. If they get into the title game, knock off Boise State, it is possible that they will be the highest ranked Group of 5 champion, even over a Tulane. Probably not, but possibly.
There's potential. You tell me there's a chance. Virginia
kind
at
of the
Virginia
same
Tech.
situation. Before we move on, though, it's kind of the same situation to Utah State, Colorado State, right? This is the bottom of the barrel Mountain West team at home to get yourself a spot in the title game. It happened at the right time for UNLV too. So unfortunate for Colorado State that UNLV has the same scenario, but kind of the perfect way to end the conference slate for the Rebels. And talk about the job Barry Odom's done. Oh my gosh. UNLV has gone from completely irrelevant to maybe a playoff team. Like that was a real sentence I just said a minute ago.
Right.
So wild.
Virginia at Virginia Tech. The Hokies have been impressive at times this year. Virginia's been impressive at times this year. Both teams have left things on the table, certainly. I think it's pretty simple to see that we're going with the home team because there's more uncertainty than I think any of us would like with this one.
At night in Blacksburg, you have to go with the Hokies almost no matter who they're playing. Also, the winner of this game gets to bowl eligibility, which is insane considering the level of talent that we've talked about Virginia Tech has on the team. To only be 5-6 right now feels insane. They very easily could be like an 8-9 win team right now if just a couple of bounces went their way, but they're not. They need to win this to get to bowl eligibility. We're all picking them to do so.
Next
and then
up,
Marshall at James Madison.
At James Madison. I'm riding with the herd. They haven't let me down whenever I've picked them, I think, except maybe once. The Dukes have put together a great season, but it's really hard to pick against Marshall right now. At least in my mind. Obviously not yours.
Yeah. I like James Madison a lot. It's at James Madison. And I just want some little karmic justice here. Marshall's only conference loss right now is against Georgia Southern. And yet Georgia Southern needs Marshall to lose for them to get into the Sun Belt Championship game. I'm really rooting for the Eagles to get it done somehow, which would mean the Dukes have to upset Marshall, which they're definitely capable of doing. I know that JMU's not in the Sun Belt title race picture, but actually, overall record, Marshall and JMU have the same record, 8-3. Just Madison's losses have come to Louisiana Monroe by 2 points, and to App State last week when we had all picked JMU to win. App State happened to do an App State thing, right? And Marshall's losses came to Ohio State, Virginia Tech, and we're all like, yeah, Marshall should have lost those games. JMU's a good team with a couple of weird bounces. So
I have no idea why John's
I'm
taking
rooting for the
JMU.
Dukes.
I have no idea why he's taking JMU, but he is, and now you know.
And then the last slide of the FBS picks for us. Houston is at BYU. What a pull for BYU.
Yep.
Win, and they have a chance for BYU. Houston, if they win, they are still not bowl eligible. That's the kind of season Houston's been having. Tough one. It is at BYU as well. Man, if BYU cannot right the ship here, they didn't deserve to be in. So,
very, very true.
Air Force is at San Diego. Hey, Air Force has been winning. They're on a little winning streak. What is going on?
Tug's worst nightmare. That's what's going on.
Neither team can become bowl eligible. With a win here, Air Force would be 5-7. But San Diego is actually worse than that. So we're all picking Air Force to keep winning and save Troy Calhoun's job for sure.
Even Tug's voting for him to save his job at this point, picking Air Force here.
And then the last game of the day
of the regular season.
Yeah. New Mexico at Hawaii. Win, and you're bowl eligible for New Mexico. Fantastic season for them already to even have 5 wins and to have been competitive in as many games as they were. If you'd beaten Montana State, we wouldn't have this conversation. Anyway, they're at Hawaii. I mean, come on. That's one of the toughest places to play in the Mountain West. I'm taking the Rainbow Warriors. Why not?
It has been fun to keep an eye on New Mexico all year, and the fact that they get to end the season in Hawaii with a chance at bowl eligibility in Bronco Mendenhall's first season back in Albuquerque. It's beautiful. I love to see it. I'm very interested to see how it goes, though. Tug and I are both taking the Lobos because we believe in what they've been doing this year. Hawaii has been underperforming, really. I would love nothing more than to see New Mexico pull this out.
So in the past, I've put Hawaii home games as Spectrum pay-per-view, which technically I think is true. But if you're in the contiguous 48 states of the United States, you can just download the Team One Sports app on your mobile device and watch the game for free, which I found out a couple of weeks ago when I was really hunting down a legal stream of Hawaii because I didn't want to pay for a pay-per-view from a company that I don't have any subscriptions with. So it was really difficult anyway. And then, found the Team One Sports app. It's not a very professional broadcast, but it gets the job done. And I've heard equally rough broadcasts from ESPN Plus. So who are we kidding?
And for the record, here's that updated look at what we're looking like going into this week. Tug at 361 and 213 for a 62.9 percentage. Doug, you're at 358 and 216 for 62.4, and I'm at 325 and 236 for a 566 percentage. Just saying, it could happen. Keep an eye out.
chance.
There is a path. And now, in case you wanted to see all the games that we've gone through, really quick, here we are.
All right. Bracket time. FCS playoff time. This is round 1 of the FCS playoffs this week. Now, of course, the way the FCS playoffs work, with as many teams as there are 8 teams that get a bye. Those teams are Montana State, South Dakota State, North Dakota State, South Dakota as your top 4 seeds. And then also UC Davis, Mercer, Incarnate Word, and Idaho as your next 4 seeds. Other seeded teams, which is a new thing this year, are the teams that get to host the first round playoff spot, the first round of the playoffs.
Except for Illinois State.
Except for Illinois State, who was given the option to host but turned it down because they're hosting that IHSA championship instead. So New Hampshire, Richmond, Illinois State, Tarleton State, Abilene Christian, Rhode Island, Villanova, and Montana are your seeded teams in the first round, and all of them are the home team except for Illinois State, as we just talked about. And then your at-large teams, UT Martin, Lehigh, SEMO, Drake, Northern Arizona, Central Connecticut, Eastern Kentucky, and Tennessee State in some order. And then they will all meet up bracket style, no reseeding as they do. We'll start off with you. What do you got for the FCS playoffs?
The first round we're going to talk about a little bit later, so I'm not going to go through the first round. And really, for our audio listeners, these brackets are kind of tough to keep track of everything.
Yeah.
So the couple things I want to point out, I do have SEMO making a pretty good run, although I do not have them in my Final Four. And I do have Mercer continuing their winning ways, but unfortunately they're going to run into North Dakota State. And same thing with Idaho. Talked about it already. They're going to run into my eventual champion, the Minnesota State Bobcats. Montana State, sorry.
M States.
We've been going for a while. My Final Four, Montana State against South Dakota and North Dakota State against South Dakota State, a Dakota marker rematch, championship game, Montana State, and then North Dakota State wins this one again. But I do have the Bobcats coming out on top at the end of the day.
Looks good to me. Moving right along.
You changed your champion.
I did change my champion. I change things all the time. I go first, usually put in logos, and then I make up my mind later. All right, so a couple differences. I have SEMO actually getting knocked out in the first round. So not a deep run for SEMO for me. All their deep runs that I have, I guess Richmond is a little bit of a crazy one for me, getting past Idaho, but of course then running into Montana State. Also, the craziest one possible, I have Mercer going a little terror. Here's the thing. If they beat the winner of Rhode Island, Central Connecticut, which I have them doing, they would be having to go to the Fargo Dome. Defense travels. And North Dakota State doesn't always show up. I know they get a bye week, but then they have to play probably a very tough Abilene Christian team or even a Northern Arizona team that is better than, I mean, they're better than their record. I agree.
They're playing with house money too.
But they're playing with house money. So either way, probably not the easiest first round game North Dakota State's ever had. I actually do like Abilene Christian a lot. And then defense travels. We've been talking about this Mercer defense all season. I'm calling a huge upset. This would be insane in the Fargo Dome for the Mercer Bears to pull it out. But then they have to turn around and play South Dakota State, which is 2 buzzsaws in a row. It's impossible to survive. So same championship for us, Montana State over South Dakota State. Or no, actually, you North Dakota State in the championship.
North Dakota State, yeah.
Same champion then, Montana State. But I have them beating South Dakota State, who beat Mercer in the Final Four, as opposed to the Bison.
And last but not least, Tug had to be a homer. His champion is the South Dakota State Jackrabbits. He does have the Rhody Rams making a bit of a run, beating Central Connecticut, Mercer, and then getting knocked off by North Dakota State. Really the biggest difference he has there. He also has Lehigh making quite a good run, knocking out Idaho, Richmond, and Idaho along the way.
Which,
but running,
just gotta say, that would be one of the craziest things we've seen in the FCS playoffs in a long time.
I think that'd be the wildest one.
Not saying it can't happen, but dang.
Yeah. And his Final Four, identical to mine. He does, however, have South Dakota State, the Jackrabbits, winning it, as I said. I do think, though, there's only 4 teams from the Missouri Valley in this year, and that's not to say the Missouri Valley was necessarily worse.
Right, because 3 of those 4 are in the top 4 seeds in the entire thing.
Yeah. What I do think is the case, though, is that the rest of the SCS is just better this year. And I think Montana State is playing at a level we haven't seen before, even better than that fantastic Montana team from last year.
Yep.
That's why I feel like we're finally going to see a different champion this year. But, we've got time. We'll see what happens.
And then we do have our first round matchups here as well, which we saved a little bit to talk about here. Illinois State at SEMO. Illinois State is the seeded team. I'm going with Illinois State even on the road. And I'm alone in that, which I feel is nuts. You're also just a hater, so whatever.
I'm a bit of a hater, but I do think SEMO's got a little bit of home field advantage there in Cape Girardeau. I think they'll take care of business here.
None of us are taking Central Connecticut at Rhode Island. We're all going with the Rams.
Which I expected from Tug. I'm a little surprised to see it from you, but then again, I could have taken Central Connecticut myself, and I chose not to. So here we are.
And then probably a homer pick for New Hampshire for Tug. Both of us are going with UT Martin.
Yeah, the Skyhawks have just been more impressive, although New Hampshire, the fact that they're in the playoff here, impressive in its own right.
And hosting a playoff game.
Whew. Certainly. And a testament to how well their season has gone for them.
Lehigh is at Richmond. Both of us going with the Spiders. As we talked about, Tug has Lehigh going on a little bit of a run.
Which, with the way they've been playing, isn't out of the realm of possibility. I do think Richmond just has a little bit more, especially recent success, that it's going to be more than Lehigh's able to overcome.
Undefeated in the CAA is more impressive to me than winning the Patriot by any margin.
That's the same for most people.
Eastern Kentucky is at Villanova. I was very surprised Eastern Kentucky made the playoffs. Them and Northern Arizona were my 2 biggest shocks, even more than Tennessee State. But that means I'm going with Villanova.
I am also going with Villanova because I'm buying what you're selling, that Eastern Kentucky really has fallen off and should not be where they're at. They're kind of imposters here. Tug's going with Eastern Kentucky, and I get it. If they've been able to ride it into the playoffs, no reason to suspect that they would be falling off the wagon at this point.
As crazy as it sounds, I really do believe last year's Eastern Kentucky team would beat this year's Eastern Kentucky team, even though last year's had a worse record.
I understand that.
I hate it, but it's probably true. Drake at Tarleton State. The Pioneer League, I don't know if they've ever won a playoff game. It's a non-conference league. So, not non-conference. It's a non-scholarship conference.
We go 2.5 hours. It's fine. I knew what you meant.
Yeah. And that's just hard to compete with. Tarleton State is on an incredible run this season. None of us think it'll last for very long in the playoffs, but at least get past the first round here. This is obviously not the same Drake team as last year, but Drake last season lost in the first round to North Dakota State by an insane margin that was on par with what Georgia did to TCU 2 years ago. Just put that in perspective. Northern Arizona is at Abilene Christian, the other UAC team. Both of them kicking off at 3 on ESPN Plus.
Yeah, and no surprise here that we're all going with Abilene Christian. If Tug was here, I think he'd fully agree with us that Northern Arizona being in here is a bit of a head scratcher. But they're going to get their shot. This is why we play the games. Maybe they meme us here.
And then the last game of the day, the only game on network television on national TV, ESPN2 at 10:15 will be showing Tennessee State at Montana. What a bad draw for Tennessee State.
You got to play at night in the cold. These kids are not ready for the weather that they're going to encounter in Montana. And
you
really,
know what? It would be so crazy storybook season for Tennessee State if they could make this a close game. That's where I'm at.
Just make it close, boys. Just make it close.
Oh, man.
Wow, what a great podcast.
Wow, what a long podcast. More like it.
Shit.
Yeah. So we went for 2.5 hours. 2 hours, 40 minutes, talk about some college football. Hopefully you all enjoyed it. And we'll see you next week. Bye.
Wait. I got some things to talk about first. Hey, why was 69 afraid of 70?
Why?
Because they had a fight in 71.
This is still not as good as my 6 afraid of 7.
Because 789.
7's a registered 6 offender.
We got some links here. They're scrolling across the bottom. I'm actually going to read them off. I'm not going to be lazy like Tug here.
Nice.
Head on over to patreon.com/BDT football or twitch.tv/Big Dudes in the Trenches, all one word there. Both of those places you can go and you can financially help the show if you so choose, or you can just watch the show live for free on Twitch. You can also do that on youtube.com/Big Dudes in the Trenches. A lot easier to watch older videos if you go over to YouTube. Check us out on Twitter or X, whatever you prefer to call it, @BDT Football. We also have a Facebook and Instagram. It's facebook.com/BDT Football or Instagram. Throw the underscore between the BDT and the football. We've got a website, bdtfootball.com, and you can email us questions at mailbox@bdtfootball.com. You can also join our conversations in our Discord, https://discord.gg/uppercase U, uppercase U, uppercase E, lowercase d, lowercase j, uppercase C, uppercase B, lowercase k, 8, lowercase b. Suck it, Tug. And if you come into the Discord saying you typed it in from hearing my beautiful voice read off our Discord link and say suck it, Tug as your first message, we'll give you some special privileges in Discord. We don't know what it is yet because nobody's done it, but if you're the first, you'll be able to help us figure it out. The last thing I want to mention is going to be in our description here. If you notice, I have a mustache. I didn't, I think, the last time I was on. I think I just shaved. But this mustache is back for Movember. I'm trying to raise $500. I'm at $276. We're winding down the end of the year here. My link for my Movember page will be in the description. If you have the means to do so, I would love your donation to help change the face of men's health. Movember donates money to men's health initiatives worldwide, whether it's mental health, prostate, or testicular cancer. Movember is doing great work for men around the globe.
Also, I don't know if this is a feel-good story or not, actually, but it involves your hometown team. So I'm going to tell it because it's interesting. So the Salukis of Southern Illinois had a bit of a problem this season as a lot of their quarterbacks kept getting hurt. They got a waiver from the NCAA to make one of their quality control coaches eligible again as he was still technically a student, but he was injured early in his career, and they just made him like part of the staff, even as a actual senior still in college. He got a waiver from the NCAA to be reinstated to the team, and another quarterback got hurt. So Michael Lindauer got to play his first and only start in his college football career after he definitely thought his college football career was over, against Murray State this past weekend in Southern Illinois' final game of the season. He also threw for a school record 7 touchdowns in his only ever game playing
That's
for
amazing.
the Southern Illinois Salukis as they won 62-0 against the Racers of Murray State.
That's insane. I knew SIU had beaten the dog shit out of Murray State. They definitely dropped off my radar with how bad they've been this year. That is amazing.
And 3 different quarterbacks played for Murray State, and combined they threw 5 interceptions. Like, it was really bad for Murray State.
That's incredible.
Lindauer just couldn't stop throwing touchdowns.
That is incredible.
And they couldn't sub him out because they don't have any other quarterbacks. So it was just pure domination.
That dude's getting another waiver. He's coming back next year. Just watch.
That'd be great. Oh, man.
God, we got to get off of here, though. Holy shit.
Yep. All right. See y'all.
Peace out, Girl Scout. Happy Thanksgiving. We will see y'all
Yes.
next week. Love y'all.